The boy was forced to change from an alpha to an omega. Enduring countless hurts from the man, he finally left in utter heartbreak. Watching the empty villa, the man suddenly realized his mistake. Baby, let's get back together. See a paranoid, dominant alpha clash with a cool, stubborn alpha. His name is G-Ran and he's an alpha. Currently surrounded by a group of people, the sound of steady footsteps approaches. A tall figure gradually comes into view. Put the knife down, G-Ran, he shuddered. Yi Linghan is the best alpha in Kyoto. His powerful presence makes G-Ran involuntarily want to submit. Yi Linghan approached G-Ran. Do you really intend to keep fighting with me? I care for you so much, why won't you make even the slightest change for me? G-Ran firmly stated, I am an alpha. Ever since I differentiated at 18, I have been a thorough alpha. Yi Linghan righteously said, I'm also doing this for your own good. G-Ran struggled to free himself from his grip for my sake. I used to think that you truly cared for me. For you, even as an alpha, I was willing. But you actually sought out an omega synthesizer, just to leave descendants for the Yi family. Yi Linghan felt somewhat heartbroken. Ran. I've tried my hardest to win your parents' approval for you. How can you doubt me? G-Ran's heart was as cold as a glacial valley. Do you know if the synthesizer causes rejection, I could die? Yi Linghan's face turned displeased. Aren't you warming up to me? If you are, why won't you take the risk for me? There's only a 50% chance of experiencing a rejection reaction. Doesn't that mean there's also a 50% chance of success? G-Ran looked at him. What if I die? Yi Linghan grabbed his shoulders. It won't happen, trust me. G-Ran laughed. Trust him? It was trusting him too much before that led to losing everything. I won't inject the synthesizer. Yi Linghan's gaze turned cold. Ran, don't force me. Yi Linghan lowered his gaze. Inject him with the synthesizer. If he doesn't listen, knock him out and tie him up. G-Ran was shocked again. He couldn't believe the man could be so ruthless. The bodyguard's orders surrounded G-Ran. As an ALF, G-Ran has strong combat abilities, but with more and more bodyguards, he simply can't compete. As the serum is injected into his body, G-Ran lets out a sorrowful roar. Yi Linghan, I hate you. Watching all this indifferently, then hate it is, all because of a man's words. The boy was forced to change from an alpha to an omega, and from then on, he was confined. 3 days later, the boy opened his eyes. He moved his body, in pain, all his joints aching. G-Ran's eyes filled with desolate mist, all brought by the person he once loved the most. Noise came from outside the door. It's been 3 days, why hasn't he woken up? Yi Linghan's furious voice made G-Ran's heart tremble. G-Ran, you're awake. He strode over. He hugged G-Ran tightly and gently kissed his neck. Yi Linghan's brows furrowed as his gaze instantly turned cold. Why is there no scent of pheromones? Still not giving up, Yi Linghan leaned down again to sniff, but there was still nothing. Suddenly, G-Ran started to laugh. Disappointed, aren't you? How could I, an alpha, possibly turn into an omega? Yi Linghan muttered, it must be that the effects of the synthetic haven't kicked in yet. G-Ran gazed at the handsome man before him. Yi Linghan, do you really love me? Yi Linghan was taken aback. G-Ran let out a bitter laugh. He had been deceived by Yi Linghan's face and so-called affection. After so many years of wholehearted devotion, all he got in return was this profound hurt. Suddenly, Yi Linghan became agitated. After all these years together, you still doubt me? What kind of person can't I have? Why would I be with you if not for love? You really don't understand. I want you to become an omega so you can rightfully become Madame Yi, not just an unnamed Mr. G. G-Ran looked at him squarely. What if I can't turn into an omega? Yi Linghan held G-Ran tightly in his arms. You won't fail to become one. Trust me. When you become an omega, we can be together legitimately. G-Ran's heart wavered. Perhaps Yi Linghan did love him and had resorted to this scheme just to be with him. 7 days later, the professors at the major research institutions stiffened their spines. Young Master Yi, please be patient. Turning alpha into omega, this kind of experiment, we have never done it before. Failure is common. Yi Linghan's gaze suddenly deepens. You treat this as an experiment? I don't care what methods you use, you must turn G-Ran into an omega. I'll give you a week. If you can't find a solution, all of you can get lost. As soon as Yi Linghan steps out of the research institute, his phone rings. Father, you've been playing around for so many years. Isn't it time to settle down? The family has decided on an arranged marriage with the Gone family. Don't make things difficult for me. Yi Linghan responds in a deep voice, is it if I find someone to bring home, you'll stop bothering me? Then, let's have the arranged marriage. Eventually, the boy turned from alpha to omega. Just when he thought he could be with the man forever, the man is going to marry someone else. After hanging up the phone, Yi Linghan returns to the villa and sees Ji Ran sitting on the sofa reading a book as soon as he opens the door. Ji Ran looks up at him, and that look makes Yi Linghan remember the first time he saw him. Through the crowd, with just one glance, Yi Linghan was moved. But when he got closer, he discovered Ji Ran was an alpha. After much thought, he finally won Ji Ran over. It's not easy to find someone you like. Gender really shouldn't be an obstacle. But gradually, Yi Linghan realized that omegas suit him better. If Ji Ran were an omega, all the problems they faced would be easily solved. Yi Linghan approached Ji Ran. Are you feeling it today? Ji Ran replied, no. Yi Linghan was extremely disappointed. How can you not feel it? If you want an omega that badly, there are plenty out there. Yi Linghan was frustrated. Why do you have to be like this again? If I wanted to find an omega, would I be wasting my time with you? After saying that, he pulled Ji Ran closer. Look at you now, you don't have half the cuteness you used to. Isn't it just about making you an omega? Ji Ran was also furious. Haven't I given enough over these years? Yi Linghan clenched his teeth. Even if you can't become an omega, you're not much different from one. Ji Ran's face was burning with humiliation and pain. With a roar of anger, Ji Ran raised his fist and smashed it towards Yi Linghan. Jiren roared and swung his fist at Yi Linghan, who quickly grabbed his wrist. Am I wrong? So what if you are an alpha? You're just like an omega. Besides not having children, tell me, what's the difference between you and an omega? The pain was too much for Jiren, not just physically but also emotionally. When Jiren woke up, it was already the next morning. Jiren had been in this villa for 3 days. When exactly would this captivity end? What exactly does Yi Linghan think of him? A docile and lovable pet dog? He's not a canary trapped in a cage, he's a thinking person. Suddenly, his gaze sharpened. It's the scent of an omega's pheromones. This scent is coming from his body. He has actually turned into an omega. The first thought that popped into his head was to tell Yi Linghan. If he knew, he would certainly be happy. Although he hated Yi Linghan for turning him into an omega, Jiren didn't want to leave him. Those years of feelings weren't fake. Maybe he could be with Yi Linghan forever. But just as he unlocked his phone, he saw a push notification for a news article. The shocking marriage alliance between the Yi and Gon families, a powerful union. The boy was forced to change from an alpha to an omega. He thought he could finally be with a man, but then the man DH with someone else. Ji Ran felt he must be hallucinating. How could Yi Linghan DH? He had said he would only be with him in this lifetime. He must have seen it wrong. Ji Ran kept looking over the news content, finally certain it wasn't a hallucination, not a delusion. Today was the day Yi Linghan and Gon Rui DH. No wonder Yi Linghan hadn't been to the villa recently. It turns out he had a beloved companion. Just now, he even felt happy about becoming an omega and slapped himself hard in anger. He laughed mockingly. No, he couldn't stay here. If the servants in the villa found out he had become an omega, they would definitely tell Yi Linghan. He must escape immediately. If Yi Linghan marked him, he would never be able to escape for the rest of his life. Ji Ran leapt and ran toward the outside of the villa area. The scent of his pheromones was very strong. If this continued, he probably wouldn't last much longer. Several alphas, like wolves that have caught the scent of blood, followed the smell and found Ji Ran, who had already run onto the road. Driven by instinct, they relentlessly pursued Ji Ran. Ji Ran, with a quick move, dashed through the crowd, pulled open the door of a sedan parked by the roadside, dragged the person inside out, started the car, and sped away. He is an alpha, he absolutely cannot be marked by anyone. Ji Ran, relying on his strong willpower, arrived at a clinic. Just as he pushed the door open, he completely lost his strength to stand. Someone supported him. Ji Ran, what's wrong with you? Actually, as soon as Ji Ran entered, he had already smelled the strong scent of pheromones on him. Ji Ran tightly grabbed Sheng Wiking's arm. Brother Sheng, help me, give me an inhibitor. Meanwhile, half an hour before the DH ceremony starts, Yi Linghan was sitting in the lounge, surrounded by makeup artists and stylists. A stylist was adjusting his hairstyle. A mirror was pushed in front of Yi Linghan. Mr. Yi, please have a look, are you satisfied? The man in the mirror looked noble and elegant, but Yi Linghan seemed indifferent to his own styling. He kept his eyes on the phone, guessing that Ji Ran would soon find out about his departure. Let Ji Ran cool off for a few days, and he will naturally realize his value. By then, Ji Ran would beg him to come back as before. At this moment, the phone in the villa rang. Yu, his brow furrowed, quickly answered. Young Master Yi, young Master Ji is missing. The boy was forced to turn from an alpha into an omega to avoid being forcibly marked by the man. The boy could only run away but didn't expect to fall into the man's hands again. At this moment, Yi Linghan was exuding a cold and fierce killing intent. Such a big person, And you few couldn't keep an eye on him, useless. The assistant reminded, young Master Yi, the banquet is about to start. Yi Linghan turned his head and sent people to search. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, find Ji Ran. Then he strode downstairs. As he reached the stairway, he ran into a few people. Yi Yunping saw his son rushing and asked, "Where are you going? Urgent matter?" Yi Yunping roared, "Stop. No matter how urgent, you must wait until the banquet is over." Yi Linghan stopped in his tracks, clenching his fist, and then he turned his head, saying he couldn't wait, and again strode towards the door. The gentle Omega beside him consoled, "Uncle, please don't be angry. Young Master Yi must have something very important to deal with. I'll go down and speak to the guests. I think they would understand." On the other side, "What did you say? Yi Linghan actually turned you into an Omega?" Actually, what Ji Ran is most worried about now is whether he can turn back into an Omega. He doesn't want to be marked by Yi Linghan, nor does he want to become a caged bird for life. Sheng Wiking comforted, "This requires a blood test for further examination. But based on the current data, I'm not sure what Yi Linghan injected you with, but you are indeed an alpha now. To be precise, you are an alpha until your sensitive period comes." Ji Ran's face turned pale as he hung his head down. "So am I an alpha or an omega?" Sheng Wiking stepped forward to administer his 4, "Although we can't be sure right now. Rest assured, no matter what, I will definitely find a way to turn you back." That evening, just as Ji Ran stepped out of Sheng Wiking's clinic, his phone suddenly rang. It was a call from Yi Linghan. Ji Ran didn't think twice before hanging up. However, the phone persisted in ringing. Just as Ji Ran was about to blacklist Yi Linghan's number, a pair of hands landed on his shoulders, and the man's overpowering aura instantly enveloped him, only to hear Yi Linghan say coldly, "Am I treating you too well, so much so that you've forgotten what you are?" Ji Ran's face turned pale. "Did you come to find me just to say this?" He had naively thought he would come to explain about DH. Without any chance to resist or react, he was dragged by Yi Linghan into the car. With a loud bang, Ji Ran was thrown dizzy, taking a long time to come to his senses. "What do you want to do?" The man leaned in close. "Are you entering a sensitive period?" The boy, forced to transition from an alpha to an omega, had run away to avoid being marked by the man. In order not to be marked by a man, he ran away, yet he was still caught by a man. At this moment, Yi Linghan is pressing down on him. "Are you experiencing your sensitive period?" Ji Ran is startled and turns even paler. "No, I can't let him see." He forces himself to calm down. "There's nothing," and then he tears open his collar. "You can smell for yourself." Ji Ran's fingers are trembling, but Yi Linghan, eager to verify, doesn't notice. There is no scent of pheromones at all, only the scent of an alpha. How can this be? He irritably pushes Ji Ran away. Sitting aside with a face as dark as iron, Ji Ran suddenly seeks out Sheng Wiking. Could it be not because of his sensitive period? I've told you many times not to look for Sheng Wiking. Have all my words gone in one ear and out the other? Ji Ran sneers. Shouldn't you, young Master Yi, be very busy today? Oh right, I haven't congratulated you yet. Yi Linghan gets angry. Must you always talk to me in such a sarcastic tone? If you considered me at all, I wouldn't have had to get together with Gon Rui. Ji Ran looks at him incredulously. Don't make excuses for your betrayal. And who you're with has nothing to do with me. After speaking, he tries to pull open the car door, intending to get out. Yi Linghan grabbed his wrist. Ji Ran shook it slightly, but it didn't move an inch. Let go. Yi Linghan glared at Ji Ran fiercely. What did you just say? Ji Ran blurted out, I said it doesn't matter to me who you're with. But before he could finish, Yi Linghan sealed his lips. Ji Ran wanted to resist, but as the most outstanding alpha, Yi Linghan had absolute strength. Yi Linghan, you're crazy. Ji Ran was a bit scared. He couldn't be like this with Yi Linghan now. He just went through a sensitive period, and although he had an inhibitor injection, there was still a risk. If something really happened, he would never be a true alpha again. Ji Ran used all his strength to free one hand. Then he raised his hand and slapped Yi Linghan across the face. The sudden move stunned both of them. Yi Linghan's gaze instantly turned icy. He was the pride of heaven, never before had anyone hit him. He grabbed Ji Ran by the neck. You dare hit me? Ji Ran looked at him fearlessly. Yi Linghan raised his hand high. He really must be crazy. Why, even now, couldn't he bring himself to hit him? The fist finally landed on Ji Ran's face. He pressed Ji Ran's hand again, reluctant to hit him, so he had to torture him in another way. The boy was forced to change from an alpha to an omega. Just as he entered his sensitive period, he faced the man's mark. How could he escape the fate of the child? In the previous episode, Yi Linghan wanted to mark Ji Ran. Ji Ran was terrified. Although he had taken inhibitors at this time, it was hard to guarantee there wouldn't be exceptions. So, he slapped Yi Linghan directly. This completely enraged Yi Linghan, who had been the favored son of heaven and had never been hit before. But no matter what, he just couldn't bring himself to hurt Ji Ran. So, he decided to torture Ji Ran in another way. Yi Linghan's sudden movement scared Ji Ran. Ji Ran didn't know his current situation and was afraid that Yi Linghan's recklessness would result in him having a child. His fingers were tightly pressing against the car window. At this moment, he felt very desperate, but more than that, he was terrified. Ji Ran was hit so hard that his body ached, as if he was about to fall apart. In the final moments, he pleaded in a humble tone, "Please, I beg you, no more." Yi Linghan was surprised. Ji Ran, being an alpha, was usually so dominant. He had never softened his stance before. What happened today? Hearing the sound of his soft voice begging for mercy melted Yi Linghan's heart. Without a second thought, he complied with Ji Ran's request. Ji Ran finally breathed a sigh of relief, then blacked out. Yi Linghan caught him in his arms. Previously so strong, now he still had to yield. What's the use of being so stubborn? You have the mouth of a knife but a heart of tofu. You resist me on the surface, but deep down, you still love me, don't you? Yi Linghan felt a bit smug. He kissed Ji Ran's forehead. Let's go home. Upon returning to Yi Linghan's villa, the servants, uneasy, went up to admit their faults and informed him that the master had arrived and had been waiting in the living room for a long time. As soon as Yi Linghan entered the living room, he was met with a torrent of scolding from his father. If it weren't for Gan Rui stepping in, the Yi family would have become a laughingstock by now. I don't care what nonsense you pull off outside, but from now on, you're to report to me every day. And when Gan Rui's heat comes, you must mark him. Yi Linghan sipped his coffee. Isn't this a bit irresponsible? Besides, I'm not interested in omegas. Old Master Yi got angry again. Shut up. Don't forget you're the only son and the sole heir of the Yi family lineage. Yi Linghan paused. If it wasn't for his desire to be with Ji Ran, why would he have dealt with Gan Rui? Let's see if he's truly magnanimous or just pretending. Yi Linghan came to the guest room. I have to say, Gan Rui is indeed good looking. For an alpha, he's very attractive. But Yi Linghan just feels that his face is not even 1/10,000th as attractive as Ji Ran's. Gan Rui rubbed his eyes. Young Master Yi, you've come. Yi Linghan was not polite to him. Thank you for what you did today, but I won't be with you. Gan Rui smiled softly. Is it because of young Master Ji? If I remember correctly, he should be an AF. Let's make a deal. I can help you get what you want. With today's advanced technology, we don't need intimate contact. This way, your father won't interfere with who you're with. Yi Linghan looked at him. What do you want? Gan Rui said, I want the entire Gan family, and 500 million. Almost without hesitation, Yi Linghan agreed. As long as he could be with Ji Ran, what difficulty is there in giving up the Gan family and 500 million? He was forced to change from an alpha to an omega. Now his beloved calls him boring and disgusting, and even leaves him to fend for himself. After Yi Linghan and Gan Rui reached an agreement, Yi Linghan went to Ji Ran's room. Ji Ran was still asleep, looking incredibly enticing. Yi Linghan felt a slight movement in his heart and leaned in. Ji Ran instinctively caught him. Feeling his response, Yi Linghan felt very proud. He knew Ji Ran couldn't bear to leave him. Ji Ran smelled a strong scent of omega pheromones. Not good, he suddenly pushed Yi Linghan away. Don't touch me. Yi Linghan suddenly became angry. What are you doing? I stayed up all night for you and this is how you treat me? Ji Ran questioned, did you touch him? He really couldn't imagine what to do if Yi Linghan had marked Gan Rui. What if Yi Linghan marked Gan Rui? I've always been someone who can't see the light of day. How pathetic. Ji Ran's questioning made Yi Linghan very angry. If I had touched him, why would I come back to endure your sarcasm? Gan Rui is much gentler and cuter than you. He's willing to have a child for me. Look at you, what can you do for me? Every word from Yi Linghan was like a knife. His eyes were full of sadness. Does loving you mean giving up on my own life? Yi Linghan noticed Ji Ran's grievance and let go of his hand. You weren't like this before. You've become more and more boring. I don't even know why I came back. Just the sight of you makes me sick. Ji Ran's face turned deathly pale, and Yi Linghan had already walked out of the bedroom without looking back. Ji Ran's tears streamed down. Boring and disgusting, how ironic. The man he loved without dignity evaluated him like this. Due to the reaction of the conversion agent, Ji Ran developed a fever. The sustained high fever frightened the servants in the villa. They hurriedly called Yi Linghan. At this time, Yi Linghan was attending a business banquet. Gan Rui reminded him, Young Master Yi, your phone is ringing. Yi Linghan angrily hangs up the phone. It must be Ji Ran asking him to come back. This time, he must coldly ignore him for a few days. It was all because he was too indulgent before. Every time they argue, no matter whose fault it is, Ji Ran is always the first to apologize. In the past, he could tolerate and concede to himself, but now he has become so arrogant and ungrateful. The phone rings again, and a strong chill emanates from the bottom of Yi Linghan's heart. He answers the call. Speak, what is it? The butler's anxious voice comes through the phone. Young Master Yi, young Master Ji is sick. Yi Linghan sneers, thinking Ji Ran is just too proud to ask him to return and is now pretending to be sick for sympathy. The butler, sweating anxiously, says, no, young Master Ji is really sick. I've just sent you a video, you'll know once you see it. Yi Linghan, irritated, replies, I don't have time to watch him act, tell him to save it. He always says he's an alpha, with such a good constitution, then let him deal with it himself. The call is mercilessly ended. Ji Ran is the most stubborn. To make him yield, Yi Linghan knows he must be ruthless. 7 days later, Ji Ran finally wakes up. During those 7 days, Yi Linghan hadn't made a single call. He even withdrew all the servants from the villa, leaving Ji Ran without even a sip of hot water. Ji Ran knows Yi Linghan is forcing him to yield and bow, but this time, he won't succumb to his will anymore. The boy was forced to change from an alpha to an omega, and under the man's various tortures, he finally gave up. However, the man did not intend to let him go. In the last episode, Ji Ran fell ill. Yi Linghan thought Ji Ran was pretending and even withdrew all the servants from the villa, leaving Ji Ran without a single sip of hot water. Ji Ran knew that Yi Linghan was forcing him to submit, but this time he would not yield to his will. After recovering, Ji Ran decided to return to school to prepare for his graduation. Just as he got out of the taxi, Ji Ran's gaze was drawn to two figures in the distance. Their actions were unusually intimate, like a couple in love. Ji Ran suddenly realized that it must be Yi Linghan coming to drop off Gan Rui for school. He gave a bitter smile. He and Yi Linghan had been in a relationship for 4 years, but Yi Linghan only took him to school when he was pursuing him. After winning him over, it was always Ji Ran going to Yi Corporation to find Yi Linghan. Sometimes, when Yi Linghan had meetings or was busy with work, Ji Ran would wait for hours or even a whole day, and he did so without any complaints or regrets. Now that he thinks about it, he was really an idiot blinded by love at that time. It's just that he blames himself for bringing this upon himself. But it really hurts here. Knowing that they are already engaged, but still unable to control his own heart. I don't want to see these two again. He quickened his pace to leave, but a stop made him halt. Ji Ran turned his head. Yi Linghan, holding Gan Rui's hand, had already walked over. The butler told me you were sick. You don't look sick. If you want to see me, you don't need such an excuse. If you ask me sincerely, I might come to see you. Ji Ran felt a sharp pain in his heart. He turned away. I don't want to see you. Then he lifted his foot to leave. However, Yi Linghan didn't let him. Did I say you could leave? Ji Ran's eyes reddened. You're already engaged, what else do you want from me? Linghan sneered, what do I want? Seeing me trying to walk away, are you playing hard to get? Ji Ran, how did you become like this? Your scheming nature really makes me. Ji Ran lowered his head, if adding sin to sin, why fear no words? If there's no love, everything is wrong. Gan Rui tugged at Yi Linghan's sleeve, Yi Xiao, I think that's enough. Yi Linghan mocked, Ji Ran, if you had even a fraction of Rui's understanding, I wouldn't hate you so much. Han felt that after saying this, Ji Ran would not hold his arm and beg. However, Yi Linghan made a miscalculation. Since Mr. Yi knows I detest and find him boring, let's not contact each other again. Yi Linghan's face suddenly turned very ugly. He grabbed Ji Ran's hand fiercely. Dare you say that again? Ji Ran broke free from his grasp and strode into the school. Yi Linghan watched Ji Ran's departing figure. He just said no more contact, but in his own eyes, he's clearly just a plaything. Only I can discard him, he has no right to initiate leaving. From that day on, knowing Yi Linghan's identity and status, he would never allow himself to engage in a love affair without offspring. He was always prepared for an eventual breakup. Now that he's sobered up, it's time to put an end to this relationship. Suddenly, hands were laid on his shoulders. Who allowed you to leave? Without my permission, you're not allowed to go anywhere. Ji Ran is bullied by Yi Linghan again. Just because he uttered the word breakup, he was ensnared by Yi Linghan from then on. In the last episode, Ji Ran let go, hoping Yi Linghan would not contact him again. He didn't have the right to say he was leaving first. Ji Ran tried hard to break free from his grip. What right do you have to interfere with my freedom? You are already engaged, don't bother me anymore. Yi Linghan had never been treated so coldly by Ji Ran in their 4 years of dating. Speaking so firmly now, Yi Linghan couldn't accept it. He grabbed Ji Ran tightly. Ji Ran, I'll say it one last time, only I can say I don't want you. You don't have the right to break up. Keep dreaming. In life, you're mine. In death, you're my ghost. Ji Ran's heart tightened sharply. How much of a bastard do you have to be to say such things? He bit Yi Linghan's shoulder hard. He bit Yi Linghan's shoulder. Whether you accept it or not, I tell you I won't go back to that place with you again. Yi Linghan's face turned gloomy. Jiren, I have really spoiled you, making you more and more unruly, and unable to recognize your own identity, becoming someone who disgusts me. Jiren lowered his head and gave a self-deprecating smile. Since you despise me so much, we might as well part ways and never see each other again. Yi Linghan's eyes suddenly widened. You still insist on leaving me? Jiren looked at him resolutely. In that moment, Yi Linghan actually felt fear. With his noble status, so many excellent Omegas had thrown themselves at him. He grabbed Jiren's hand, but why did he just not want to let him go? He dragged Jiren to the nearby ginkgo forest. Jiren had just recovered from a serious illness and was no match for Yi Linghan. Yi Linghan pushed him against a ginkgo tree and then pressed himself against him. You are not allowed to leave. I don't agree to break up. You can forget about leaving me in this lifetime. You see, you are already used to me. You've been very lonely these days without me around, right? Jiren verbally denied it, but his body was very honest. Yi Linghan smugly curled his lips. Can you really leave me like this? You can't be a normal alpha anymore. Look at you now. Do you still have the ability to mingle with betas and omegas? The mocking words made Ji Ran feel utterly humiliated. With strength from who knows where, Ji Ran suddenly broke free from Yi Linghan. Yi Linghan, we were once deeply in love, must you be so heartless? Yi Linghan pinned Ji Ran against the tree once again. I'm heartless because you're willful. After saying that, he forcibly tore Ji Ran's clothes. Be good, I don't want to hurt you, he murmured as his lips touched that fair skin. Ji Ran threw a punch. Don't touch me, I find you disgusting. Yi Linghan touched his face in disbelief. What right do you have to find me disgusting, to say such things in front of me? The next second, he pounced on Ji Ran. Tearing off all of Ji Ran's clothes, Ji Ran's eyes were filled with fear. Yi Linghan, you've really gone mad. Ji Ran was bullied by Yi Linghan again, photographed and threatened, and what's more terrifying is that Ji Ran's omega glands acted up at that moment. In the last episode, we saw Yi Linghan pounce directly on Ji Ran in the midst of a bustling campus, with no one lingering around the tree-lined promenade. Listening to Ji Ran's subdued voice, Yi Linghan's blood boiled with desire. Ji Ran may have a temper, but his body could be the death of him. Although he has Ji Ran now, why does it still feel insufficient? Yi Linghan grasps Ji Ran's neck. Who else can satisfy you but me? His words pierced Ji Ran's heart, causing agony so intense he wished to cease existing. Ji Ran closed his eyes in despair. After a brief tidy-up, Yi Linghan returned to his refined and noble demeanor. In contrast, Ji Ran looked much more disheveled. The sight of Ji Ran, clothes in disarray, made Yi Linghan's breathing grow heavy. He really couldn't bear to part with Ji Ran, even if he couldn't become an omega. Keeping him close wouldn't be too bad. The pity was that he was so unteachable. In an effort to control Ji Ran, he took out his phone. He snapped several photos of the disheveled Ji Ran. Hearing the shutter sound, Ji Ran jerked his head up. What are you doing? Yi Linghan twisted his wrist in retaliation. Isn't it obvious what I am doing? Then he pressed him against the silver birch tree, continuously taking pictures. Ji Ran was so anxious that his eyes were red. How could Yi Linghan do such a thing? He can't just take photos of him. Yi Linghan took a lot of photos, and finally, contentedly, he let go of Ji Ran. He smirked and coldly said, Ji Ran, I'm warning you, don't you dare leave my side. If I find out you've done anything to betray me, I will immediately release these photos. Do you believe that with a simple flick of my fingers, I can ruin you? Ji Ran believed him. He knew Yi Linghan was capable of anything. Yi Linghan threw clothes at Ji Ran. Behave and go to class, no tricks. After school, obediently return to the villa and wait for me. His arrogant words felt like commands, making Ji Ran feel like he was nothing but a lowly being. Ji Ran clenched his fists tightly, not letting his expression reveal anything. Yi Linghan was always observing. Ji Ran didn't even get angry despite the harsh words. Thinking about this possibility, Yi Linghan's heart clenched abruptly. A fear that was indescribable suddenly turned to anger. Maybe anyone could betray and leave him, but not Ji Ran. Shung Ganru will soon be in heat. I'll mark him. So treasure the time I'm with you. Maybe in a few days, I'll be completely sick of you. Ji Ran suddenly widened his eyes, his face as pale as paper. Yi Linghan really wanted to be with Gan Rui. After a long time, Ji Ran finally regained some strength. Yi Xiao, congratulations. I wish you and Gong Xiao an early birth of your child and a long-lasting marriage. Yi Linghan couldn't believe it. What did you say? Yi Linghan looked at Ji Ran's departing figure. His eyes suddenly turned cold. He meant it. Exiting the ginkgo forest, Ji Ran almost used up all his strength. Ji Ran wanted to pull himself together, forget this relationship, and start anew. At this moment, Ji Ran stumbled and fell to the ground. At the same time, a faint fragrance emitted from his body. Damn, he had grown omega glands. Ji Ran suddenly entered a sensitive period. How could he escape the pursuit of so many alphas? Previously, we mentioned that after being bullied, Ji Ran smelled a faint fragrance, and omega glands appeared on his wrist. The red spots became more prominent, and the pheromones on his body grew stronger. What should he do? In a few seconds, the passing students noticed. Ji Ran clenched his fists, thinking he must not be discovered in a school full of alphas. He started running quickly. Yi Linghan had just reached the school gate when a large group of students ran southward, saying something. Oh Meg, Yi Linghan became vigilant. The wind blew past, carrying a faint fragrance. The sweet, enticing scent made Yi Linghan's blood boil. A flash of realization crossed Yi Linghan's mind, and his pupils constricted sharply. Could it be that Ji Ran had become an omega because of the synthetic agent? The excitement in Yi Linghan's eyes grew more intense at this possibility. He must find Ji Ran and not let anyone else touch him. He changed direction and ran toward the crowd. Ji Ran staggered into the school auditorium, forcing himself to hold on. If one is marked by an alpha, from then on they can only be an omega. Ji Ran doesn't want to be dominated by any alpha, not even Yi Linghan. He turned around to lock the door and finally, unable to hold up, slid down. Soon after, loud banging sounds came from outside the door. Each bang made Ji Ran's heart tremble. Listening to the sounds coming from all directions, Ji Ran's heart sank bit by bit. Was he really going to be marked by an alpha? Yi Linghan arrived at the performance hall's entrance and saw that many alphas had already gathered there. He grabbed an alpha with bloodshot eyes, who's inside. The alpha couldn't be bothered to answer him. Yi Linghan kicked him fiercely, and at that moment there was a loud crash. A large hole was broken in the window and an alpha was climbing inside. Seeing this, Yi Linghan yanked the person out and threw him away forcefully. The person inside is mine. If anyone dares to touch him, I won't let you leave the school gates. Having said that, he turned and leapt through the broken window into the performance hall. His agile eyes searched around, the scent of pheromones in the air growing fainter. Yi Linghan's gaze sharpened as he sniffed. Oh, it's gone. Anxious to find Ji Ran, Yi Linghan didn't dwell on where the scent had gone. He quickly searched the performance hall. Ji Ran wasn't there. Could it be that the person just now wasn't Ji Ran? He takes out his phone to call Ji Ran. The exhibition hall is eerily quiet, not a sound to be heard. Just as Yi Linghan is about to hang up, he hears a faint ringing sound in the distance. Yi Linghan finally catches Ji Ran during his sensitive period. Can Ji Ran escape Yi Linghan's inspection? Previously, just as Yi Linghan was about to hang up, he heard a faint ringing sound in the distance and turned to see Ji Ran standing at the entrance of the exhibition hall. Yi Linghan quickly steps forward. The person inside just now was you, right? Are you experiencing your sensitive period? Ji Ran, with a cold face, I'm an alpha. I don't have a sensitive period. You've mistaken me for someone else. Yi Linghan obviously doesn't believe it. Impossible. Let me smell you. At that moment, a hand grabs Yi Linghan's wrist. Mr. Yi, please show some respect in public. Yi Linghan's gaze turns cold. What are you doing here? Sheng Wiking replies, I am a psychology professor at this school. Is it strange for me to be here? Yi Linghan's piercing gaze falls on Ji Ran. At such a close distance, Yi Linghan could clearly smell the scent belonging to an alpha from Ji Ran. Ji Ran, tell me, how come you're here? Ji Ran replied without revealing anything. With such a big incident happening at school, naturally, I had to come and see. Yi Linghan looked him over. Is that so? Sheng Wiking said, let's go. Ji Ran didn't even glance at Yi Linghan before turning to leave. Yi Linghan quickly followed. Ji Ran, I've warned you more than once not to associate with irrelevant people. Have my words been completely ignored, or do I really carry so little weight now? Ji Ran glanced at him. This is a school, not the Yi family's territory. Yi Linghan grabbed Ji Ran's arm. Stop. Nega, the sign of a gland, should be right here. Whether it is or isn't, one look will tell. Ji Ran's scalp exploded, his heart thumping uncontrollably. Yi Linghan was testing him. Yi Linghan gently stroked Ji Ran's wrist. Right or not, you tell me. Suddenly, someone rushed in. Professor Sheng, come take a look, there's an omega in heat over here. Yi Linghan's expression turned serious, and he looked somewhat disappointed, letting go of Ji Ran's hand. The omega? Blushing, stammered, "I came looking for someone." Sheng Wiking carefully observed and realized that this omega had already been marked. Probably here to find the alpha. Yi Linghan also noticed something was amiss. That pheromone just now wasn't emitted by the person in front of him. Another omega is hiding in this campus. Could it be Ji Ran? Suddenly an alpha appeared. "Xiao Yue, why did you come here?" The little omega looked at the person in front of him with pleading eyes. "Today is my sensitive period. Can you help me? You marked me, you should take responsibility for me." The alpha shook him off coldly. "I've marked many, do you think I have to take responsibility for all of them? Don't daydream. And just look at yourself. At that time, I only helped you out of pity. Don't tell me you really thought I liked you." Ji Ran's fists cracked with anger. Enough with the scumbags. This was obviously an indirect criticism. Yi Linghan frowned. Sheng Wiking helped the little omega up and looked coldly at the alpha. "Unless you want to be expelled, behave better from now on." Then he turned his head, ready to call Ji Ran, but the corridor was empty. In order not to let Yi Linghan know that he is an omega, he is ready to burn all his bridges. But it was discovered during the medication. As mentioned before, Yi Linghan had some doubts. The scent of the pheromone just now was definitely not from that little omega. So, while Sheng Wiking was dealing with the omega incident, he directly took Ji Ran away. "Yi Linghan, let me go." In the end, Ji Ran punched Yi Linghan on the back. Yi Linghan, rubbing his back, was obviously a bit angry. "Make another scene, I dare you." Little did he know, Ji Ran really gave him another punch, then turned around and left. Yi Linghan was furious. He grabbed Ji Ran's arm. "Have you had enough?" After saying that, he picked up Ji Ran and strode towards the direction where the sedan was parked. Ji Ran was thrown harshly into the back seat, screaming in pain. After Yi Linghan got into the car, he immediately locked the door and then drove off quickly. Ji Ran pounded on the car door, roaring, "Stop the car, I want to get off." Yi Linghan, with a gloomy tone, said, "Shut up." Soon, the car arrived at the villa. As soon as Yi Linghan pushed the person into the villa's door, he pinned them against it and asked one last time, "Was the person at the school auditorium today you?" Ji Ran's heart raced with panic, wondering if Yi Linghan had become suspicious. Had he given anything away? He feigned calm and replied for the last time, "It wasn't me." Yi Linghan looked down at Ji Ran. The scent of the omega's pheromones was off. "So now you've learned to lie," he pondered as the image of a small omega kneeling and begging an alpha flashed through his mind again and again. If Yi Linghan discovered his secret and marked him completely, his fate might be the same as that small omega. He closed his eyes tight, refusing to end up like that. When he opened his eyes again, the panic was gone. "I didn't lie to you," he said as he began to unbutton his shirt. "If you don't believe me, you can check." Yi Linghan actually wasn't sure, and indeed, there was no scent of pheromones on Ji Ran. Could he really not be the one? Yi Linghan, feeling somewhat reluctant, draped the clothes back on Ji Ran. "All right, if the person today really wasn't you. Well, if you're really not the person today, I'm with you now. You wouldn't try to prove it to me, right? Otherwise, you'll never be able to leave this villa." Jiren is also making a last-ditch effort, hoping that after this time, Yi Linghan will no longer pester him. Yi Linghan carries Jiren to the bedroom. He gently puts him down. Jiren doesn't struggle and is very compliant throughout. Yi Linghan over and over again. Jiren really couldn't take it anymore. "Yi Linghan, enough is enough." Yi Linghan smirked, "You're not an omega. What's wrong with a touch?" Jiren coldly looked at him. "You can go find Gon Rui." Yi Linghan got angry, "Why are you always so boring? At times like this, you have to say such things to frustrate me." Until late at night, Yi Linghan fell asleep. Jiren carefully got out of bed and found the medicine in his backpack. Although he injected the suppressant, since he just developed an omega physique, to avoid any sudden situations, he just put the medicine in his mouth. A man's deep voice sounded from behind, "Jiren, what are you doing?" Jiren was imprisoned in the villa, becoming a bird in a cage from then on. When did it happen? When can it come out? Last episode, Ji Ran decided to take a risk so as not to arouse Yi Linghan's suspicion. Unexpectedly, she was discovered while taking the medicine. "What are you doing?" Ji Ran pretended to be calm, trying to stabilize her wildly beating heart. "I'm taking medicine." "You're not going to interfere with that too, are you?" Yi Linghan snatched the bottle. "What medicine is this?" Ji Ran replied, "Just some vitamins." Sheng Ji said, "My immune system is too weak." Yi Linghan got irritated upon hearing Sheng Wiking's name. "I've told you many times not to associate with Sheng Wiking. Why didn't you tell me if you were feeling unwell?" Ji Ran tried to snatch her medicine back. Yi Linghan dodged. "Give me my medicine back. I'm not in the mood for your nonsense." Yi Linghan frowned deeply, grabbed Ji Ran's neck. Is this how you talk to me? Don't think you can act recklessly just because I like you. In my eyes, you're nothing but a pet. Know your place. I really want to strangle you right now. After saying that, he increased the pressure of his hand, looking at Ji-ran's pained expression, but eventually, he let go, reluctant to hurt her further. Ji-ran, coughing in pain, Yi Linghan coldly watched her. You wanted this bottle of medicine, right? Here you go. With a bang, the medicine bottle shattered. Yi Linghan strode out of the bedroom. Ji-ran squatted down and picked up the pills one by one. The times of heartbreak were too many, slowly becoming numb. Ji-ran curled up into a ball, slowly closed his eyes. The next morning, Ji-ran was woken up by noisy sounds. Turning his head, he saw two people installing surveillance cameras. The man explained, "Young Master Yi sent us to install them in every room and every corner." Ji-ran hurriedly got up. Why install this? The staff replied that they were just doing their job for money. Ji-ran angrily wanted to find Yi Linghan to ask clearly. Just opened the door and saw a group of bodyguards standing at the door. Sorry, young Master Yi ordered that you cannot leave the villa. Ji-ran was both angry and desperate. Yi Linghan really treated him like a pet. Ji-ran couldn't bear it anymore. He dialed Yi Linghan's phone. What on earth do you want? I have already proven what you wanted. To his surprise, Yi Linghan replied, I regret it now. Before I have an heir, you can forget about leaving. Ji-ran, in a fit of anger, smashed the phone on the ground. For several consecutive days, Yi Linghan did not appear. In the meantime, the butler delivered a new phone to Ji-ran and helped him install the SIM card. He was not allowed to go out, his activities were confined to the villa, and he couldn't even go to the garden. Ji-ran had completely become a bird in a cage. Yi Linghan, you are really ruthless, he thought. At this moment, there was a noisy shout from outside the door, get out of my way. My son lives here. He is the owner of this villa, the beloved of young Master Yi. Not only was Ji-ran imprisoned by Yi Linghan, but he also suffered from the relentless exploitation of his parents. He really doubted if he was their biological son. In the last episode, Yi Linghan had confined Ji-ran, forbidding him from leaving the villa. On this day, Ji-ran's parents came. Ran, let us in. I am your mom. Your dad and I came to see you. Just as Ji-ran walked down the stairs, Li Huiquan saw him. Let go, can't you see my son came to pick me up? She said, shaking off the bodyguards and quickly rushing in. Li Huiquan grabbed Ji-ran's arm. Looking at him with a fawning expression, why are you ignoring mom? Are you still mad at mom? I was wrong this time. I really have stopped gambling. Actually, Ji-ran had heard such promises many times before. Ever since I was 15, I've been working and saving every penny. All the money was squandered by my parents. He's busy every day paying off debts for his parents, even having to take full responsibility for his brother's house purchase. After getting together with Yi Linghan, things got even worse. His tolerance only led to their endless demands. Now, being restricted by Yi Linghan, he can't go out to make money. Even if he could, he wouldn't want to spend another penny on his family. Seeing Ji-ran being indifferent to them, Ji Zongguo was furious. Ji-ran, you don't even greet us when you see me and your mother. What kind of attitude is this? Ji-ran spoke wearily, Dad, if you're here for money, I really don't have any. Ji Zongguo didn't believe him. You live in such a nice house and say you have no money? You have no money, but Yi Xiao certainly does. Go ask him for it. Your brother's apartment is just over 3 million, very cheap. You climb up the social ladder but don't help your family. You live in luxury while letting your parents and brothers suffer. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Faced with his parents' unreasonable nagging once again, Ji-ran had only one thing to say, I have no money. Seeing Ji-ran resolute in not giving them money, Li Huiquan started to panic. Ji Zongguo's eyes narrowed, Ji-ran, if you don't give me 5 million today, I will disown you as my son. Both were incredulous. What did you say? Ji-ran spoke firmly, let's sever ties then. I won't give a penny to the family before you retire. If you want to live a good life, rely on yourselves. I am not obligated to pay for your greed. Furious and shaking, Ji Zongguo stepped forward and slapped Ji-ran. You think you can kick us aside now that you're strong? Let me tell you, there's no way. If you don't bring out 20 million within 10 days, don't even think about severing ties. To stabilize the situation, Ji-ran nodded in agreement. Satisfied, Ji Zongguo finally left. Afterwards, Ji-ran called many classmates, all of whom gave perfunctory responses, saying they had no money. After Yi Linghan and Gan Rui got engaged, the classmates who always used to fawn over Ji-ran suddenly disappeared, a perfect illustration of the fickleness of the world. In a cold world, Ji-ran chuckled self-deprecatingly with his head hung low. Ji-ran opened a drawer in the cabinet. He took out a velvet box from inside, containing a watch that Yi Linghan gave him for his 18th birthday. The watch was still there, but Yi Linghan's heart was no longer with him. It was said the watch was worth 50 million. Selling it would definitely solve the pressing issue. Was there really nothing left between him and Yi Linghan? With a lingering fondness, he dialed Yi Linghan's number. If he asked Yi Linghan for money, he would surely be met with mockery. But he had no other choice. The moment the call connected, Ji Ran mustered his courage to speak. Yi Linghan, I was thinking. Hello, Mr. Yi is not available at the moment. Is there something I can help you with? Hearing the word bathing, a pang of pain shot through Ji Ran's heart. Yi Linghan was going to bully Ji Ran again. For the first time, Ji Ran faced a life-threatening danger. The previous episode mentioned Ji Ran's parents causing trouble, demanding 20 million from him within 10 days. With no other options, Ji Ran bravely called Yi Linghan. However, the person who answered the call was Gan Rui, who said that Yi Linghan was taking a shower. Ji Ran's expression froze, and her lips trembled forcefully, feeling a deep pain in her chest. The person on the other end of the phone continued, if it's urgent, I can pass the phone to young Master Yi. Ji Ran came back to her senses, and with difficulty uttered, it's nothing. After that, she hung up the phone quickly, tears continuously falling onto the cell phone. It turns out that when actually facing this situation, the heart still hurts. Yi Linghan took the phone. What did he say just now? Gan Rui looked up. Nothing much. I said you were taking a shower, and then he just hung up. Yi Linghan's frown deepened, feeling particularly upset. He deliberately had Gan Rui provoke Ji Ran. But why hasn't he called back to ask him? If he would admit his mistake and beg him to come back, all his bad temper is just being indulged. Gan Rui asked, Yi Xiao, why didn't you answer the phone just now? Yi Linghan, exuding an air of irritability, ran his fingers through his hair. I didn't want to. When is your sensitive period? Gan Rui calculated the time. In 5 days. Gan Rui explained, 3 days ago, you were on a business trip, and I could only inject suppressants. Do you expect another alpha to mark me? Yi Linghan emphasized once again, even if you are in your sensitive period, I will not mark you. Remember the conditions you agreed to. Gan Rui pointed to his wrist. But if you don't mark me, Uncle Yi will be suspicious. A temporary mark is read. Yi Linghan murmured that he would solve the issue with the marking. I got it. Gan Rui didn't say much more. After leaving Yi Linghan's room, without WeChat, Ji Ran didn't contact him again. Yi Linghan cursed, feeling it increasingly boring. Before, just a slight frown from him, Ji Ran would submit. How come today, provoked by Gan Rui, he showed no reaction at all? He opened the surveillance to see what Ji Ran was busy with. Ji Ran was on the phone, holding his mobile. I don't have anything valuable at hand to mortgage, except for a custom-made watch. It's said to be worth 50 million. I'll leave it with you for now. After I pay back the money, you can return the watch to me. Yi Linghan's eyes turned cold. Ji Ran, you're really something. Even the gift I gave you, you could easily give it away. It seems I've been too lenient usually. Today, I must punish him severely, let him know who is his heaven. On the way back, he received a call from his close friend. The gist was that Ji Ran was borrowing money everywhere, even planning to pawn the gift he received. Yi, when did you become so stingy? Not even giving out breakup fees. Yi Linghan's eyes showed ruthlessness. He could have just asked him for money, why insist on pawning their token of love? As Yi Linghan stepped into the bedroom with a murderous aura, he saw Ji Ran already asleep on the bed. He strode over and grabbed Ji Ran's clothes, slapping him fiercely. Yi Linghan abused Ji Ran once again. The ordeal lasting a day and a night almost killed Ji Ran. When he opened his eyes again, his only words were, Yi Linghan, I hate you. At this moment, Yi Linghan grabbed Ji Ran and gave him a brutal slap, the crisp sound echoing in the bedroom. Ji Ran and Yi Linghan had been together for 4 years. They had fought, made a fuss, and even talked about breaking up, but no matter what happened, Yi Linghan had never laid a hand on him. This was the first time, and Yi Linghan let go with a hint of guilt. But seeing the hatred in Ji Ran's eyes, what was that look? Thus, the only bit of guilt instantly vanished into thin air. He grabbed Ji Ran's chin. I was gone for just a few days, and you couldn't wait to find other men. The slap hurt, but not as much as Yi Linghan's words. Ji Ran finally reached his limit. He punched Yi Linghan in the face. His expression was icy, his eyes filled with murderous intent. What right do you have to say that to me, Yi Linghan? What kind of man are you? You're not even a person. Yellingen grabbed Jiren's neck tightly. Remembering the phone call just now, Jiren felt disgusted. He doesn't want such a filthy man. Don't touch me, you make me sick. Yellingen was clearly furious. You don't want me to touch you, you want Rongcheng too? He pulled a rope from the head of the bed and bound Jiren's hands tightly. I didn't realize you had become so desperate. My money isn't enough for you, making you borrow from everyone and lose face? Jiren roared, anyone is better than you. These words evidently provoked Yellingen completely. Fine, since everyone is better than me, today I will let you truly understand. He dragged Jiren in front of the mirror. Watch carefully how you beg me. Jiren had a terrible day, constantly bleeding. Late into the night, he developed a fever. In his delirium, he flashed back to his past interactions with Yellingen. This was his own bedroom. Back then, Yellingen was very gentle with him, holding him in his arms, repeatedly whispering sweet nothings, personally applying medication. To take care of him, the pampered young master Yellingen even learned to cook porridge. He almost burned down the kitchen. Recalling Yellingen's frantic behavior, Jiren curled his mouth into a bittersweet smile. At that time, it truly felt like a beautiful dream that would shatter at the slightest touch. Yellingen sat by the bed, staring at him the whole time, noticing the change in his expression. Jiren, what did you dream about? Why do you seem so sad? Jiren softly called out to Yulinghan. That soft voice instantly pierced Yulinghan's heart. He immediately leaned over. Renan, Jiren opened his empty eyes. Jiren opened his empty eyes, quietly looking at the man in front of him, slowly uttering, Yulinghan, I hate you, in a very soft voice, yet it stabbed fiercely into Yulinghan's heart. Jiren nearly died, but Yulinghan still wouldn't let him go. Last episode mentioned that Jiren, with empty eyes, slowly said, Yulinghan, I hate you, in a very soft voice, yet it was like a knife fiercely stabbing into Yulinghan's heart. Yulinghan couldn't believe it. What did you say? Jiren repeated, I said I hate you. Yulinghan lost control. He forcefully grabbed Jiren's neck. Hate me? What right do you have to hate me? Jiren started to feel lack of oxygen. His consciousness also became blurrier. He curved his lips. Perhaps this is for the best. There's nothing in this world worth my attachment anymore. He closed his eyes in despair. Slowly Jiren lost consciousness, his head tilted to one side. Yulinghan abruptly let go of his hand, somewhat panicked. Then he hugged Jiren tightly into his arms. Jiren, you wake up for me. If you dare to leave me, I'll make everyone in your family join you. Yulinghan shook Jiren desperately, like a madman. However, Jiren still had no reaction. Yulinghan quickly picked up his phone to call the doctor. Come over here immediately. When the doctor arrived, he saw Yulinghan holding Jiren tightly without letting go. Young Master Yi, calm down first. Young Master Ji has probably just fainted. Yulinghan turned around, his cold gaze making the doctor shudder. Wake him up. As the doctor examined him, he sighed. Such a good young man. He has the demeanor of an Omega. How could young Master Yi not cherish him? With so many injuries, who knows when he'll recover? The doctor couldn't bear to watch. Young Master Yi, young Master Ji's health has never been good. The last time he had a fever, it left lasting effects. You really can't keep doing this, or he might lose his life. Yulinghan immediately grasped the key point from the doctor's words. You said his last fever left lasting effects? His health was always good. How could he suddenly fall ill? Were you bribed by him? The doctor was astounded by Yulinghan's logic. It's because of the compound. Young Master's health is much worse than before. Yulinghan was stunned. He remembered what Jiren had said at that time. Do you know that if the compound causes a reaction, I could die? The doctor explained many side effects of the compound. Yulinghan clenched his fists. He has been enduring the side effects of the compound all this time? Why did he never tell me? The doctor gave Jiren antipyretic and anti-inflammatory injections, left some topical and oral medications, and then left. Yulinghan stayed with Jiren the whole time. Yulinghan recalled the times when Jiren was sick before, how Jiren would joke with him, saying it was just a common cold and there was no need to worry. Jiren slowly woke up, struggling to utter the word water. Yulinghan quickly propped him up and handed over the water, but Jiren suddenly remembered something. He slapped Yulinghan's hand away, shattering the cup. His action scattered all of Yulinghan's words of concern. Yulinghan insulted Jiren again, even throwing him to his fair-weather friends. The previous episode mentioned Jiren almost died. When he woke up, he slapped the cup out of Yulinghan's hand. Yulinghan widened his eyes in anger and shouted, What are you doing? Don't touch me. Jiren's eyes were filled with deep hatred, thinking of last night's events and feeling unbearable pain. In that moment, Yulinghan's guilt towards Jiren dissipated. I have already humbled myself so much. Try causing a scene again. Don't be ungrateful. Jiren let out a cold laugh, his eyes full of disdain. Now, Yulinghan is like a beast that could go mad at any moment. The gradual lack of oxygen makes Jiren's breathing increasingly difficult, his face turning completely red. Yi Linghan suddenly thinks of something and forcefully releases his grip, throwing him aside. Ji Ran keeps coughing. Yi Linghan coldly watches him. Since you are so shameless, I'll fulfill your wish. The dazzling and wild lights make the private room look extremely enchanting. Yi Linghan forcefully opens the door. Next to him is Ji Ran, trying hard to endure. Yi Linghan approaches him, maliciously whispering in his ear, "Don't you want to make money? Perform well today. These people are all wealthy and powerful. If you serve them well, you won't be short on money." Everyone is a bit surprised to see Yi Linghan bring Ji Ran over. Yun Ziquayu steps forward. "Yi Xiao, what wind blows you here today?" He wraps his arm around Yi Linghan's neck. "What's going on here? You come out to play and bring little Cheng? And what did you mean by what you just said?" Yi Linghan doesn't answer him, throwing Ji Ran onto the sofa. Then he takes out a thick wad of cash from his pocket. "Make sure everyone here is satisfied, and this money is yours." The moment his words fall, the private room falls silent. Everyone has seen how much Yi Linghan used to care for Ji Ran. What's going on today? Yi Linghan is curious to see how long Ji Ran can hold out. The private room becomes lively again. "Ji Ran, hurry up and toast to young Master Yi. If you make young Master Yi happy, this money is yours." Yi Linghan grabs his chin and shakes it hard. "Didn't you hear me? Pour me a drink." Ji Ran directly retorted, "I don't know how." Yi Linghan let go of his head. "If you don't know, then learn. Stop acting so high and mighty." After speaking, he took a glass of wine and poured it over Ji Ran's head. "How were you cooing so softly when you borrowed money from Rongcheng? But you put on airs with me." The wine dripped onto Ji Ran, and it must be said that although Ji Ran is an alpha, he has a handsome and exquisite appearance. Everyone in the private room was staring straight at Ji Ran. This made Yi Linghan feel very annoyed. He originally wanted Ji Ran to learn his lesson, but instead, it drew a pack of wolves. He turned around and yelled, "What are you all looking at?" They all knew Yi's methods very well. No one wanted to mess with him at this critical moment. Ji Ran picked up the wine glass, and his cold voice followed, "Is it true that if I toast, the money on the table will be mine?" Ji Ran is causing drama with Yi Linghan again. When Ji Ran truly no longer cares about Yi Linghan, it's Yi Linghan who panics. As mentioned in the last episode, Yi Linghan humiliated Ji Ran. Ji Ran picked up the cup, then raised his head and said coldly, "If I make a toast, will the money on the table be mine?" When Yi Linghan heard this, a look of complacency flashed in his eyes. So what if he is aloof? He still has to obediently listen to his command. He was sure that Ji Ran was just putting on an act. As long as he scared him a little, he would definitely comply. Ji Ran walked towards Yi Linghan with the cup in hand, but his gaze didn't stop on his face at all. He directly looked past him and landed on someone else. "Mr. Liu, I toast to you." Silence in a word, "Sorry, it's my first time toasting, not very skilled." Then, leaning into his embrace, wrapping my arms around Mr. Liu's neck, the cold night air pressure soars. Under the dazzling lights, Ji Ran's eyes shine brightly. When Liu Hao catches her gaze, it's like being scratched by a kitten, uncomfortably itching. As Ji Ran brings the glass to his lips, he immediately leans in, wanting to drink, but Yi Linghan quickly pulls Ji Ran's arm away. Pulling him out from Liu Hao's embrace, the next second, he starts punching and kicking Liu Hao, saying, "You dare touch my person?" Liu Hao, beaten black and blue, keeps begging for mercy. Yun Ziquayu, seeing Yi Linghan losing control, worries about serious harm and quickly stops him. "We're all here to have fun, don't spoil the mood." Thinking to himself, Yi Linghan evidently cares, yet he's harsh and humiliating. Involved parties are blind, realizing later will make life difficult. And Ji Ran's move, a warning to others, probably stops anyone from underestimating him. Quite interesting. Yi Linghan grabs Ji Ran's arm. "Ji Ran, I never realized how casual you could be before, something anyone can notice." Ji Ran, who was thrown onto the sofa by Yi Linghan, looked disheveled, but his smile was blinding. "Young Master Yi, you have a terrible memory. You just told me to make everyone in the private room comfortable. I am just following your orders. If you think it's not enough, I can do more." Yi Linghan grabbed Ji Ran by the neck and gritted his teeth, shouting Ji Ran's name. Yun Ziquayu held Yi Linghan's wrist, trying to persuade him, "Young Master Yi, calm down. Hey, you over there, come and serve young Master Yi properly." An Omega, with a seductive smile, offered Yi Linghan a piece of watermelon. Yi Linghan took it out of spite, hoping Ji Ran would get angry seeing this. Yi Linghan's peripheral vision caught something, and his whole body stiffened. Ji Ran was holding a plate of bills, counting them. Yi Linghan felt like a ridiculous clown. He had tried multiple times to get Ji Ran's attention today, but Ji Ran's mind was not on him at all. The Omega in his arms restlessly picked up another piece of fruit. Yi Linghan glared at him fiercely, then forcefully pulled Ji Ran into his embrace. Grabbing his chin, he said, "Do you love money that much?" Ji Ran sneered, "If I don't love money, should I love you?" Ji Ran was truly disheartened this time. He only wished Yi Linghan would either let him go or kill him. At this moment, Yi Linghan was pinching Ji Ran's chin, teeth grinding with a crunching sound. "You love money that much?" Ji Ran laughed with reckless abandon. "If I don't love money, should I love you instead?" Talking about feelings only leads to heartache, talking about money won't. If he had gone after Yi Linghan's money from the start, he wouldn't be as battered as he is now. Yi Linghan threw Ji Ran's hand away. "Would you do it for anyone who gives you money?" Ji Ran looked at him expressionlessly. "Yeah, young Master Yi, remember to settle the expenses from the other day." Yun Ziquiu gasped, thinking Ji Ran was really audacious, not afraid that Yi Linghan might seriously hurt him. Yi Linghan grabbed Ji Ran's arm and dragged him outside. Staring at Yi Linghan's furious back, Chi Zhou leaned over to ask Yun Ziquiu, "Could this end up in a fatality?" Yun Ziquiu curled his lips, replying, "Probably not. Considering the situation today, there might not be a next time." Yi Linghan then took Ji Ran back to the villa all the way. "Can't you just be obedient and stay by my side?" Yi Linghan was truly infuriated. "Why do you have to leave me? What do you want me to do? I've done everything I could to keep you. Why does it only push you further away?" Ji Ran looked at Yi Linghan. "If I say I want to top you, could you do it?" Yi Linghan was stunned for a moment. "I gave you the chance to become an Omega. It's you who failed to take it." Yi Linghan, "Is it your first day knowing me? When you pursued me, you said you would be with me forever." Yi Linghan, "Answer me, you didn't lie to me. Stay by my side obediently, so we can always be together." Actually, deep down, he really can't leave Ji Ran. Gan Rui is just my other half in name. You don't need to quibble over this. Ji Ran smiled wryly, feeling foolish. What was she still hoping for? Yi Linghan stared straight at Ji Ran. "Do you know how angry I was when you were feeding Lu Hoquin drinks? Let's make up, Ji Ran." But before he could finish speaking, he was silenced by Ji Ran's words, because Ji Ran said, "Let's break up." The gentleness in Yi Linghan's eyes vanished instantly, replaced by a terrifying coldness. "What did you say?" A resolute light flickered in Ji Ran's eyes. "Let me go or kill me. Make your choice." What he wanted, Yi Linghan couldn't give. Rather than suffering humiliation by his side, she would rather die quickly. Yi Linghan held Ji Ran tight. "I've told you, even if you die, don't think about leaving me. You're mine. No matter what, I will never let you go." That night, Yi Linghan was extremely crazed. The doctor came to the villa again, and this time Ji Ran's condition was even worse than the last. He carefully closed the door. The young master's wounds have been treated. Ji Ran's injuries are very serious, she really cannot endure anymore. Yi Linghan looked coldly at the doctor. "Will it kill him? He wants to die anyway, what do I care? You've been staying at the villa recently, keep an eye on him and don't let him die." Jiren's only wish is. "Yellingen, let's break up." Unfortunately, he didn't have the strength to say it. At this moment, Yun Ziquiu was teasing Yellingen. "How many days has it been since you last went back? Are you having a spat with Jiren again?" Yellingen became even more irritated at these words. That night he was indeed too excessive, but he just couldn't control himself. Whenever he saw Jiren's face, he couldn't help but want to touch it. To prevent himself from doing anything more extreme, he simply didn't go back to see him. At this moment, Yellingen received a call from the villa. "Young Master Yi, please come back and take a look. Young Master Ji hasn't eaten for days." Yellingen suddenly stood up. "What are you guys doing? If he doesn't eat, then feed him. Where's the doctor? Have him come over and give him a nutrient injection." Yun Ziquiu shook his head secretly. "You believe that hunger strike trick?" He grabbed Yellingen's wrist. "If you go back, you'll fall right into his trap." Yellingen turned his head, his sharp eyes falling on Yun Ziquiu's face like knives. Yun Ziquiu instinctively let go. Yellingen turned and walked out of the private room. Yun Ziquiu felt a bit aggrieved. Using that kind of look on me for someone insignificant? So scary. Jiren slowly opened his eyes, listening to the sound of the night outside. "How are you now? Have you eaten? What did the doctor say?" "The doctor recommends hospitalization." Yi Linghan pushed the door open. He had never seen Ji Ran like this before. The person on the bed had eyes devoid of any sign of life, filled entirely with despair. Ji Ran turned his hollow eyes towards Yi Linghan. Yi Linghan leaned in close. "I'm here. What do you want to say?" Yi Linghan leaned in close to me. "What do you want to say?" Ji Ran took Yi Linghan's face in hand, gazing earnestly at her. He had so much to say. No one had ever loved him since he was a child. Until he turned 18 and met Yi Linghan. He had thought that this feeling could really last a lifetime, as Yi Linghan said. But in the end, it was just his wishful thinking. He couldn't remember anymore how they ended up this way today. He also wanted to say, Yi Linghan, let's break up, but he didn't even have the strength to speak and eventually fell into unconsciousness. Yi Linghan picked up Ji ran, quick, to the hospital. The dean, notified earlier, was already waiting at the hospital entrance with the medical team. Yi Linghan kept silent with a face ashen, watching as Ji ran was rushed into the emergency room. Sheng Wiking was invited to the hospital for an academic exchange and saw Ji ran lying on the stretcher as soon as he stepped out. His eyes widened in shock and he quickly approached, grabbing a nurse to ask, what happened to him? Severe malnutrition, seems to be caused by fasting, the nurse replied. Sheng Wiking's eyes turned cold, and he raised his fist to strike Yi Linghan. What have you done to him? Yi Linghan easily dodged Sheng Wiking's blow and cursed, you beast, Ji ran has given so much for you, and yet you treat him this way. Yi Linghan's eyes seemed to form ice, you have no right to interfere in what's between him and me. Sheng Wiking let out all the pent-up anger in his heart. You lunatic. Turning him into an Omega wasn't enough for you? Now you want his life too? Yi Linghan retorted, if I didn't love him, I wouldn't have turned him into an Omega. Ji ran finally escaped from Yi Linghan and was even confessed to by acute beta. Last episode mentioned Ji ran was critically ill. When he was sent to the hospital, Sheng Wiking happened to find him. Sheng Wiking angrily confronted Yi Linghan. In the end, he was chased out of the hospital by bodyguards. Don't show up in front of young Master Yi again, or I'll beat you up every time I see you. Just as Sheng Wiking lifted his head, Rong Cheng's car stopped in front of him. Professor Sheng, what happened to you? Rong Cheng hurriedly helped Sheng Wiking up, you're badly hurt. I'll take you to the hospital. Yi Linghan has already surrounded this hospital. Going in now would be like running into a gunfight. It's just a minor scuffle. Why are you here? Rong Cheng replied, I was originally going to the hospital for an inspection and happened to run into you at the entrance. Sheng Wiking paused. Is this hospital owned by your family? Rong Cheng nodded, did something happen in the hospital? Sheng Wiking patted Rong Cheng's shoulder, can I ask you for a favor? Rong Cheng's attitude was very sincere. Professor Sheng, please tell me. As long as it's within my power, I will try my best to do it. Sheng Wiking knew that Rong Cheng had a good relationship with Ji ran, he wouldn't have lent him 20 million otherwise. Ji ran is trapped in this hospital. Please help me rescue Ji ran. 3 days later, Ji ran woke up again and found himself in a strange place. The servant quickly said, young Master Ji, you've just woken up. It's best not to walk around randomly. After talking with the servant for a few sentences, he learned that he was now in Tongcheng. Rong Cheng pushed the door and entered. Senior, you're awake. Are you feeling better? Ji ran remembered clearly. Before he passed out, he should have been trapped in a villa by Yi Linghan. How could he be here? Rong Cheng explained, it was Professor Sheng and I who brought you out from the hospital. This place is very safe. Take your time to recover. Yi Linghan won't find you here. Ji ran found it hard to believe that he had really escaped. He excitedly grabbed Rong Cheng's arm. Is this true? Your body hasn't fully recovered yet. Don't get too excited, Ji ran took a deep breath. Does this mean I can finally leave Yi Linghan behind and lead a normal life? Just thinking about escaping that luxurious cage made Ji ran tremble with excitement. He was finally free. Meanwhile, Yi Linghan was not doing well. How could a perfectly fine person just disappear? Search the entire city for me. I refuse to believe he can just vanish into thin air. Ji ran, are you really so eager to disappear from my side? Several days later, at Rong Cheng's villa, the two were comfortably having afternoon tea. Senior, you've been doing rehabilitation training for a week. How's your body now? Ji ran gave him a slight smile. Much better now. Thank you. Rong Cheng's heart skipped a beat, his gaze fixed on Ji ran. Ji ran was incredibly beautiful, almost unreal for an alpha. He nervously looked away but finally mustered the courage. Senior, I like you. Give me a chance to take good care of you. Ji ran was slightly stunned, not expecting Rong Cheng to confess so directly. Yi Linghan grabbed Ji ran. Coincidentally, Ji ran was in a sensitive period. The superior said Ji ran finally escaped from Yi Linghan. His smile was dazzling, making Rong Cheng's heart leap. He gathered his courage. Senior, I like you. Give me a chance to take good care of you. Ji ran was slightly stunned, not expecting Rong Cheng to confess so directly. After a brief moment of surprise, he gratefully said, Rong Cheng, thank you for liking me, but I really don't have the heart for a relationship right now. After being in a relationship with Yi Linghan for 4 years, Ji ran had exhausted all his emotional energy and was afraid to touch love again. Rong Cheng did not give up. He earnestly said, Senior, we can start as friends. If you still don't like me in the future, we can always be friends. I know you've just come out of a relationship and can't trust anyone right now. It's okay. I can wait. Ji Ran felt a bit troubled. I can't be with you out of gratitude for your efforts. That would be disrespectful to you. Rong Chung quickly changed the subject. Right, senior, today is the Mid-Autumn Festival and there's a grand masquerade. Let me take you there to unwind a bit. Ji Ran was somewhat worried. Yi Linghan won't let me off easily. It's better if I don't show my face. I'll go abroad once the paperwork is ready, so I won't cause you any trouble. Rong Chung took his hand. Don't worry, senior. Tongcheng is my brother's turf. Even if Yi Linghan has far-reaching influence in Biacheng, he can't reach us here. I heard the party is fun. Let's go have a look. Ji Ran changed into a black suit, looking noble and elegant. Rong Chung couldn't help but admire. Senior, you look so handsome. He handed over the mask he was holding. The two headed towards the party, unaware that a black Maybach was slowly stopping at the hotel entrance. Yi Linghan was getting out of the car. At 8 o'clock, the party officially began. Rong Chung was quite excited. Senior, let's go down and have some fun. Ji Ran, not wanting to dampen his spirits, nodded in agreement. Driven by the music, Ji Ran gradually relaxed, chatting and laughing with Rong Chung in the dance floor. Suddenly, his gaze froze. Ji Ran saw Yi Linghan sitting on the sofa, and obviously, Yi Linghan saw him too. He quickly got up, pushing people in the dance floor aside without hesitation. Where did she go? She was right here just a moment ago. At this moment, Gan Rui grabbed his hand. At that moment, Gan Rui grabbed his hand. Yi Xiao, Yi Linghan turned his head, wondering if he had seen wrong. That person wasn't Ji Ran at all. On the other side, Rong Cheng was obviously surprised. How could Yi Linghan possibly come to Tongcheng? Ji Ran, hidden behind the mask, had a pale face. It's definitely him. I'm not mistaken. Rong Cheng grabbed Ji Ran's hand. Stay behind me. Slow down your steps. Don't arouse suspicion. But at that moment, a delicate and elegant fragrance wafted from behind. An Omega is in their sensitive period. The fragrance grew stronger, and Rong Cheng's breathing became more rapid, and this scent was right behind him. Ji Ran was caught by Yi Linghan once again. What consequences would he face this time? At this moment, Rong Cheng was hurriedly pulling Ji Ran away. But unexpectedly, Ji Ran entered his sensitive period at this moment. Rong Cheng widened his eyes in disbelief. Isn't the senior an alpha? Suddenly, the place was thrown into chaos. Ji Ran's consciousness became more and more blurred. He grabbed Rong Cheng's hand. My sensitive period has started. Help me leave here. Rong Cheng pulled Ji Ran into his arms and then looked up at the surrounding crowd. Sorry, my boyfriend is having a fever. Please make way for us. Although Rong Cheng is a beta, he has a strong presence. The waiter quickly approached. Sir, there's a lounge over there. If you go out like this, it will easily cause unnecessary trouble. The scent of pheromones on Ji Ran's body is getting stronger, and Rong Cheng can hardly hold back. As long as he sees his senior's neck, he wants to mark him. He shook his head vigorously. What is he thinking now? He absolutely cannot take advantage of the situation. He looked at the waiter. Please show us the way. The three of them quickly went to the lounge. Ji Ran felt as if he was on fire, as if thousands of ants were gnawing at his sanity. He whispered to Rong Cheng, hurry up and take me away from here. Yi Linghan is here. It's dangerous, he is coming. With his reminder, Rong Cheng also realized and quickened his pace. Yi Linghan had obviously already followed. He wouldn't mistake it. That was Ji Ran. No wonder the scent of the pheromones was so familiar. It was the same smell from that day at school. It seems Ji Ran had already become an Omega long ago but had been hiding it from him. He grabbed Ji Ran's arm. Ji Ran, stop. Gan Rui took a deep breath. This is Ji Ran. How could he be in his heat? If Ji Ran turns into an Omega and Yi Linghan marks him, then all my plans will be ruined. Gan Rui hurriedly stepped forward. Young Master Yi, you've mistaken the person. This Omega already has a partner. Let's go back quickly. Father is already urging us. Yi Linghan turned a deaf ear to his words, his gaze fixed on the tall figure ahead. He couldn't be mistaken. That was Ji Ran. Ji Ran was also hopeful that Yi Linghan was just testing him. As long as he walked out the door, he could escape to a place where Yi Linghan could never find him. But his hand was forcefully grasped, and Yi Linghan's voice landed heavily on his back. Did I allow you to leave? Then Yi Linghan released his pheromones. Ji Ran's breathing became rapid, his body started to weaken, and he was nearly unable to hold on. Rong Cheng pushed Yi Linghan away forcefully. Sir, please let go. He's my boyfriend. Please show some respect. Yi Linghan's face behind the mask was expressionless, But his eyes exposed outside the mask were fierce. He gritted his teeth and said, "Your boyfriend?" Yi Linghan was about to mark Ji Ran. Could Ji Ran escape this time? At this moment, Yi Linghan was drawing closer to Ji Ran. The strong pheromones made Ji Ran tremble all over. Rong Cheng stood in front of Ji Ran. "Sir, he is my boyfriend. Please show some respect." These words clearly angered Yi Linghan, who threw a punch at Rong Cheng. Rong Cheng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Then he pushed Ji Ran into the resting room, locked the door from the inside, and escaped through the window. Yi Linghan, watching their interaction, became even more furious. "You two are really putting on a show for me." Ji Ran knew all too well how ruthless Yi Linghan could be. He kept knocking on the door, asking Rong Cheng to open it. Rong Cheng stood his ground, watching Yi Linghan. Yi Linghan coldly said, "You dare to touch my man. Ji Ran is mine, no one else is allowed to touch him." He kicked Rong Cheng repeatedly. Blood spilled from Rong Cheng's mouth, but he clenched his teeth and didn't make a sound. Ji Ran stood behind the door. These past few days, Rong Cheng had been taking care of him. He had pulled him back from the brink of death. He couldn't get Rong Cheng involved. He couldn't let Yi Linghan hurt him. Ji Ran charged and opened the door. Yi Linghan looked straight at him, as if looking at prey. "You finally came out." At this moment, Ji Ran was emitting a strong omega pheromone. "Our issue has nothing to do with Rong Cheng." "Let him go," said Ji Ran. Gan Rui sensed trouble. "Master Yi, Master Ji's body must be uncomfortable now. The suppressant should be." Yi Linghan cut him off. "No need." He approached Ji Ran. Ran, "I finally found you." He pushed Ji Ran into the lounge with a shove. The door slammed shut, and Ji Ran's heart jolted. Could it be marking? To become a caged canary once more? He couldn't live that life again. Ji Ran kept retreating. "I won't let you mark me." "Yi Linghan, give up on your foolish dreams." Yi Linghan held Ji Ran tightly. Even with his strong composure, he was now breathing in disarray due to Ji Ran's pheromones. Suddenly, the door burst open. A group of alphas scrambled to squeeze into the lounge. Yi Linghan found them extremely annoying. Ran, wait for me." He stood up, "I dare anybody to try," and threw a punch at an alpha beside him. The scene became chaotic instantly. Ji Ran wanted to find Rong Cheng to take him away. At that moment, Gan Rui suddenly grabbed him. "Here's your suppressant. If you don't want to be marked, leave through the window now." Ji Ran hesitated, but what about Rong Cheng if he left? Gan Rui seemed to guess his thoughts. The Rong family in Kyoto may not be as influential as the Yi family, but they are not to be trifled with. Ji Ran knew that if he didn't leave now, he would never have another chance. So, he pushed open the window, flipped over, and leapt down. Gan Rui smiled at the deep night, unaware that Yi Linghan was approaching him. He suddenly grabbed Gan Rui's mouth. "Where is he?" Gan Rui faltered. "He has escaped." Yi Linghan flung him away. "Stop trying to be clever in front of me." Walking to the window, Yi Linghan sighed. There wasn't even a trace of pheromones outside the window. "It seems Ji Ran has been gone for a while. Even if he flees to the ends of the earth, I must bring Ji Ran back." Last episode, Ji Ran suddenly entered his sensitive period, and was about to be marked by Yi Linghan when he escaped, thanks to Gan Rui's ulterior motives. Yi Yunping's face was livid. "For a Ji Ran, you're willing to turn Kyoto upside down. I won't agree to let him enter the Yi family. There can only be one Mrs. Yi, and that's Gan Rui." Yi Linghan was somewhat impatient.
Ye Linghan is getting impatient. If Gan Rui wants to be Lady Ye, then let her have that title. I just need Ji Ran. Ye Yunping is very puzzled. If you don't marry Ji Ran, why are you in such a hurry to find him? To marry and annoy me? Ye Linghan stubbornly claims, I mark him to conquer him. I must find Ji Ran, mark him, and make sure he can never leave. What Ye Linghan doesn't understand is that it was never Ji Ran who let go first. It was him who pushed Ji Ran to the edge, forcing him to let go. Now it's not about love anymore. It's just about an alpha wanting to conquer his desired prey. In a small mountain village in the suburbs, Ji Ran, are you okay? It turns out that after leaving Tongcheng, Ji Ran went straight to a middle school classmate's home. Xia Yuandan's parents died early, and he's living alone with the child his brother left behind. At this moment, there's a knock at the door. Xia Yuandan, I can already smell it. Let me in. The iron gate opens a crack. Dai Hiking. I've told you many times. We have no chance. Dai Hiking smiles sleazily. The pain of the sensitive period is too much. Don't endure it. It's so good to be with me. I'll make sure you're very satisfied. Xia Yuandan will not be easily provoked. Don't set your sights on me, or I'll smash your head in. Dai Hiking is about to teach Xia Yuandan a lesson, when suddenly a pair of hands grab him by the collar. Jiran's eyes are like ice, extremely terrifying. The contest between alphas, the winner is king. Although Dai Hai King is also an alpha, at this moment he turns complete coward. He quickly raised his hands above his head. It's a misunderstanding. I promise I'll never come back. Jiran forcefully threw him to the ground. Don't let me see you again. Xiao Yuanden looked at Jiran with admiration. I really envy you alphas. Jiran felt a bit down. What's there to envy? He went to the sink and washed his face. Fortunately, the sensitive period passed quickly, or else I really wouldn't have had the strength to deal with Dai Hai King. Xiao Yuanden hesitated. What's going on with you? Jiran turned off the faucet. His face was very tired. I was injected with Omega synthetic agent. Now I'm neither alpha, beta, nor Omega, just a complete freak. Xiao Yuanden looked shocked. Who the hell did this? Yiling Han? Jiran didn't respond, which was a tacit confirmation. Xiao Yuanden was furious. How could he do such a thing? Are all these rich people so arrogant? Jiran patted Yuanden's shoulder. Forget it. I'm not sad about it anymore. Shouldn't you go make dinner? Xiaoan will be back soon. Not long after, the iron door was knocked on again. Jiran's first thought was, why does this child look a bit like Yun Zikyu? He patted Xiaoan's head. Dinner wasn't ready yet. Xiaoan and Potato played in the yard first. Xia Kang'an spread his little legs and chased the ball outside. The ball rolled and rolled until it hit a pair of shiny black shoes. A man bent down to pick up the ball. Xia Kang'an looked up and saw a tall and handsome man standing in front of him. Uncle, that's my ball. Ye Linghan smiled. Little friend, does Jiran live here? Jiran was caught by Ye Linghan again, about to face inhumane treatment. In the last episode, Ye Linghan came looking. Little friend, does Jiran live here? Jiran was about to open the door and call Kang'an for dinner. Just as he opened a crack, a familiar pheromone made him shiver all over. The scent was so strong and familiar that it made his scalp tingle. Ye Linghan stood outside, holding Xia Kang'an. Ran, long time no see. Xiao Yuandan heard the noise and came out of the kitchen. The door was already filled with bodyguards. Ye Linghan approached Jiran. Why aren't you speaking? Or are you too happy to see me? Xia Kang'an was a bit scared. He softly called out, Uncle. Xiao Yuandan immediately rushed over. Give me back my child. But within a few moments the bodyguards subdued him. Jiran, furious, punched the bodyguard in the face. Let him go! Jiran, in fact, is also a formidable alpha. He never holds back when it comes to fighting. He supported Xiao Yuanden and then coldly looked at Ye Linghan. Ye Linghan, put Kang'an down. What's between us shouldn't involve others. Ye Linghan's gaze fell on the hand Jiran placed on Xiao Yuanden. Ran, you have an Omega by your side. You're quite popular. I didn't know you were this attractive. Jiran frowned. Yuanden and I are friends. Don't make it difficult for them. Ye Linghan's jaw lifted slightly. Ran, are you pleading with me? The courtyard was filled with bodyguards, menacingly watching them. Jiran knew there was no escape. Now, he could only think of a way to make him let Yuanden and the others go. Jiran hung his head. I'm begging you. Xiao Yuanden couldn't stand these princes' attitudes. Ran, don't beg him. He's already engaged to the young master of the Gan family. What right does he have to be with you? He'll regret it sooner or later. Ye Linghan's gaze grew even colder, and Jiran's protective actions completely enraged Ye Linghan. Since you're so protective of him, then I'll let you see for yourself the consequences of defending someone else in front of me. The next second, the bodyguards moved towards Jiran and Xiao Yuanden. A tragedy is about to unfold, as the mountain village blanketed by nightfall sinks into silence. Ye Linghan is pulling on the iron chain around Jiran's neck. Do you like this? He pulls hard, causing Jiran to fall towards him. You like to run away, now you won't be able to escape. Xiao Yuanden's fist crackle as he curses non-stop, and the present Ye Linghan seems like a complete madman. He pinches Jiran's jaw. Are you afraid I'll harm you if you anger me? Jiran, have you taken a fancy to him? The two of you, one Alpha and one Omega, have lived together for so long. Ye Linghan stares intently at Xiao Yuanden's face. It's quite good looking, especially those eyes. But no one dares to compete with me for a person, you know? Then, with the corner of his mouth slightly raised, he says to the bodyguards, This person is your reward. Jiran roars out, Ye Linghan! Ultimately, Jiran pleads with Ye Linghan, unable to escape this time. The higher-ups stated that no one dares to compete with Ye Linghan for a person, so he rewards Xiao Yuanden to the bodyguards. Instantly, Xiao Yuanden is surrounded by the bodyguards. In their eyes, Xiao Yuanden is just prey caught in a trap. Xia Kongan rushes in front of Xia Yuanden, extending his small arms in front of him. Don't you dare hurt Uncle Xia. Xia Yuanden struggles desperately but is held down firmly. Please don't harm him. Seeing this scene not far away, Jiran's fists clenched tightly, the hatred almost bursting from his chest. The next second he knelt down with a thud. Forcing a "I beg you" from his throat, Jiran's kneeling made Ye Linghan feel completely satisfied. He said, Jiran, all this is so you'll never leave me. Since all of this is to make sure you never leave me and always belong to me, don't blame me, he said, lifting his hand. Who are you begging for mercy from? He felt humiliation deep inside but was unwilling to submit. He even wanted to destroy himself to destroy Ye Linghan, but in the end, he held back. He couldn't act impulsively, couldn't resist. Xia Yuandeng and Xia Tangan were still in Ye Linghan's hands. Ye Linghan sat down and said, Is this how you beg for mercy, so casually? He pressed down on Jiran's head and whispered in his ear, Make me happy. If I'm happy, I'll let them go. Ye Linghan was humiliating him, and Jiran knew it very well. But he had no choice but to endure. You just want to humiliate me, right? Then go ahead. He looked up at Ye Linghan. If I do this, will you let Xia Yuandeng and Xia Tangan go? Ye Linghan nodded. Of course. All I want is you, Ye Linghan said, gesturing to the bodyguards in the distance. Take them out. Jiran clenched his fists tightly. One day, he thought, I'll repay Ye Linghan for everything I've suffered today. Ye Linghan's actions, even when they were at their best, were never this close. Why was he suddenly so enlightened today? He lifted his face to Jiran. He pulled him into his arms. Look at me, Jiran. Tell me, do you still have feelings for me? If once Jiran had believed that Ye Linghan loved him, now he truly didn't believe it anymore. And his heart would never again belong to Ye Linghan. Ye Linghan picked Jiran up and walked out the door. If Ranran speaks up for you today, I'll let you go. Come on, don't make me see you again. Xia Yuandeng knew that Ye Linghan and Yun Ziqiu were the same type of people. No matter what he and Jiran did, they couldn't escape such a fate. Years ago, he had finally met someone he liked, only to find out he was just a scumbag. After having the child, he begged the doctor not to tell Yun Ziqiu about the child. Then he directly returned to the village. At that moment, he quickly rummaged around, asking himself, is it here? And finally found a box. The box was full of photos. Yun Ziqiu still couldn't forget him. If Yun Ziqiu found out about Anand's background, would he come to fight for him? If that day ever came, he wouldn't have the ability to compete with Yun Ziqiu, just like Jiran, who couldn't escape Ye Linghan's grasp. I should make a clean break and say goodbye to the past, he thought. But after he left, a small hand reached into the box. Xia Kongan looked at the photos and couldn't help but praise, this uncle is so handsome. Ever since Jiran compromised with Ye Linghan finally showed mercy and let Xia Yuandeng go. A passenger plane slowly landed. Ye Linghan, dressed in a black trench coat, walked down the steps. A guard spoke up, Young Master Ye, Mr. Ye wants you to go home. He wants you to go alone. Jiran heard the bodyguard's words clearly and sneered inwardly. Ye Yunping's disdain for him wasn't a recent development. Back then, he had even signed an agreement promising not to spend a penny of Ye Linghan's money. Thinking back, he felt he was foolish for giving so much to a man who wasn't worth it, only to end up hurt. After returning to the villa, Jiran was locked in the bedroom, while Ye Linghan went to meet Ye Yunping. Ye Yunping said, I thought you had already given up on him. I didn't expect you to bring him back again. Ye Linghan crossed his long legs. Dad, you want me to marry Qian Rui. I've already agreed. Can't you leave everything else alone? At this, Ye Yunping became upset. How long have you been engaged to Qian Rui? Why haven't you marked him yet? Ye Linghan sipped his wine. Why do you always go against Jiran? Jiran is already in his sensitive period. Ye Yunping slammed the table. Who does Jiran think he is? He doesn't have the right to bear the heir of the Ye family. Ye Linghan stood up. How about this? If I mark Qian Rui, will you stop interfering with Jiran and me? Ye Yunping held traditional views, valuing social standing. You can play with Jiran however you like, but don't bring him home. Ye Linghan stood outside Qian Rui's door. He recognized the scent clearly. He pushed the door open and saw Qian Rui sitting on the sofa with a flushed face. Upon seeing Ye Linghan, a hazy light appeared in Qian Rui's eyes. Young Master Ye, Mr. Ye didn't allow me to inject an inhibitor. Ye Linghan stepped forward, lifting Qian Rui's chin. Do you want me to mark you? Qian Rui's face grew even redder, and his eyes were filled with longing. I want it, young Master Ye. I'm feeling terrible, Qianrui said, gazing at him expectantly, almost pleadingly. In his mind, Ye Linghan saw Jiran's determined face. Qianrui reached out with his pale fingers to touch Ye Linghan. Please help me. I'm begging you, he said, and just as their lips were about to meet, Ye Linghan suddenly pushed Qianrui away. Qianrui was surprised. Why, young Master Ye? I'm really feeling awful. Please mark me. I promise I'll behave. Ye Linghan brushed Qianrui's burning face aside. I warned you not to play tricks. Is today really your sensitive period? Qianrui's gaze flickered. Mr. Ye told me to do this. I had no choice but to obey him. Ye Linghan pulled out a bottle of suppressant from his suit pocket. Take this. Qianrui's eyes were filled with reluctance. Young Master Ye, if you don't mark me today, I can't explain it to Mr. Ye. Grabbing Qianrui's collar, Ye Linghan said, Don't forget, I'm marrying you for the family, so I can be with Jiran. My mark is reserved for him. Don't get any ideas. Even without a mark, I remember the deal we made. Next Tuesday my personal doctor will come to see you. Go to the hospital as soon as possible and get the surgery done. Don't try any more tricks. Next time I won't let you off so easily. Jiran finally took action against Ye Linghan. What consequences will he face? After being brought back to the Lu mansion, Jiran had barely opened his eyes in the morning when he was slapped hard. Jiguo cursed angrily. You ungrateful thing, young Master Ye has been so good to you. That's the blessing you've accumulated over many lifetimes, and you still dare to run away? Jiran propped himself up and said, Blessing? Being kept like a pet in this villa? If that's a blessing, you can have it. I've already given you everything. I have nothing to do with you anymore. Jiguo's face turned pale. You unfilial son. I gave birth to you, raised you, and until your death, you'll still be my son. As long as you stay by young Master Yi's side obediently, he'll continue to give us money. Jiran's teeth gritted with anger. The agreement has been signed. I have nothing to do with you. Now get out of here. Jiguo picked up a stick and tried to hit him. If you don't agree to continue serving young Master Ye, I'll beat you to death right now. Just as the stick was about to fall on him, a hand blocked it. Ye Linghan grabbed the wooden stick. Quite a temper you have, Jiguo, he said. Jiguo immediately shrank back. Young Master Ye, you've returned. I was just disciplining Jiran. Rest assured, I'll make sure he behaves perfectly. Did they hit you? Ye Ninghan's body still carried the lingering scent of Jianrui's pheromones. Although the bottom of his eyes revealed something even he hadn't noticed himself, he said, Don't touch me, I find you dirty. Ji Zongguo became even more silent upon hearing this, and he raised his fist, ready to strike. Ye Ninghan grabbed his hand. Talk if you want, but don't use your fists. Now that you're here, why not join us for a simple meal? No need to be so formal, it's just home-cooked food. Feel free to eat, Ye Ninghan said. Ji Zongguo and Li Huizhen felt uneasy. They had never seen such exquisite cuisine. Ye Ninghan held a piece of sliced foie gras up to Jianran's mouth. Ran, I remember you love foie gras. This was specially airlifted from Strasbourg. Jianran turned his head slightly away, making Ji Zongguo tremble with anger. Jianran, don't act bold. Young Master Ye treats you so well, what else could you possibly want? With a sudden pull, Ye Ninghan yanked Jianran to his side. If Ranran doesn't want foie gras, it must be because he hasn't seen the appetizers. He snapped his fingers and leaned in close to Jian Ran's ear, saying, Darling, I've prepared a special appetizer for you. I know you'll love it. The large screen on the wall lit up, showing an iron cage, and inside were several ferocious-looking tigers. Do you like these little cuties, my dear Ranran? Since you're not happy, the appetizer I prepared for you will arrive soon. In the next moment, Jianran's eyes widened in shock as he was forcefully pushed into a room by two people. Jianran turned to look at Ye Ninghan. Are you crazy? Ye Ninghan clapped his hands. The cage on the screen opened. Ye Ninghan grabbed Jianran's chin. Ranran, do you like this appetizer? Jianran was terrified. I've already been caught by you. What more do you want? Ye Ninghan replied. Even though you're by my side, I feel like you're not as devoted as before. Jianran, I want your heart. Jianran lowered his head, his gaze falling on the knife on the table. Stop dreaming, he said as he grabbed the knife. Without hesitation, he stabbed towards Ye Ninghan's chest. I want to kill you, you bastard. With a thud, Ye Ninghan easily caught Jianran's hand. His eyes were cold yet filled with desire. Jianran, do you really want to kill me? Eventually, Jianran was forced to give in to Ye Ninghan. From then on, he lived like a pet. In the last episode, Jianran had attacked Ye Ninghan. Blood dripped, and the knife fell. Ye Ninghan's eyes darkened. Jianran, do you really want to kill me? He tightened his grip on the iron chain in his hand. Pulling hard, he said, though I can't bear to punish you, I won't hesitate when it comes to Sheng Weiking's life. Jianran, don't push me. On the screen, Sheng Weiking was surrounded by 3 tigers. Jianran didn't want Sheng Weiking to lose his life because of him. Ye Ninghan, let Sheng Weiking go. This has nothing to do with him. Ye Ninghan forcefully pressed Jianran down on the table. Ran, you'd go to such lengths for him, even stabbing me. Is he really that important to you? Now watch closely and see how Sheng Weiking gets torn apart by these tigers. The tigers lunged toward Sheng Weiking. Blood instantly flowed from Sheng Weiking's arm. The smell of blood only made the tigers more restless. If Ye Ninghan wasn't stopped soon, Sheng Weiking would die. Ye Ninghan, I'm begging you, make them stop. Ye Ninghan smirked. Ran, I don't like it when you act all obedient while begging, only to forget it afterward. I guarantee I'll never do it again, Jianran pleaded. Yi Shao, I'll never do it again. Ye Ninghan raised his wounded hand. But the murderous intent in your eyes just now was real. Jianran's voice was weak. Young Master Ye, there won't be a next time. Ye Ninghan was satisfied with his attitude. I know you love foie gras, eat it all, won't you? Jianran lay down on the table, taking one bite after another of the foie gras. At this moment, he looked like a pet dog. Young Master Ye, can you spare Sheng Weiking? I promise to be obedient from now on. Ye Ninghan finally agreed to spare Sheng Weiking. As long as you stay by my side, I'll agree to anything. Now you're tired. Let me take you to rest, Ye Ninghan said. Before leaving, he glanced at Ji Zongguo and Li Huijin, who were still dumbfounded at the table. Keep eating. Don't waste the food on the table. Ji Zongguo kept stuffing food into his mouth. Yes, young Master Ye, we'll eat right away. Ye Ninghan's oppressive gaze was like a blade. Remember, Jianran is off limits to you. Stay away from him. Ji Zongguo quickly apologized. Young Master Ye, it was our fault. We shouldn't have laid hands on Ran. Please don't hold it against us common folk. As Ye Ninghan left, the tension in the living room eased slightly. Ji Zongguo slumped into his chair, feeling a sense of relief after a close brush with death. Good thing young Master Ye didn't feed us to the tigers in his anger. Let's get out of here quickly. This place is too dangerous. As the two stood up, someone called out to them, Wait a moment. Young Master Ye instructed you to finish all the food on the table. You can't leave the villa until it's all gone. Li Huijin's face froze. Looking at the dozen or so pounds of meat in front of them, she thought, how is this possible? They finally understood that Ye Ninghan was punishing them. But wasn't this what Ye Ninghan ordered them to do in the first place? Ye Ninghan forcibly released his pheromones, pushing Jianran into an early sensitive period. How would Jianran escape this time? Jianran suddenly woke up in a panic. He had dreamed of Sheng Weiking being attacked by those ferocious tigers. Ye Ninghan touched his face. Ran, did you have a nightmare? Jianran threw off the covers and jumped out of bed. What happened to Sheng Weiking? Just as he reached the door, Ye Ninghan's calm voice sounded. He's not dead. Ye Ninghan stood up. But, Jianran turned around. But what? Ye Ninghan's cold gaze fell on him. But whether he lives depends on what Ran does. Jianran walked toward Ye Ninghan, his voice devoid of any emotion. What do you want me to do? Ye Ninghan was very pleased with Jianran's attitude. Good boy, as long as Ran listens to me, I won't let you suffer. Now let me take you to see your parents, Ye Ninghan whispered close to his ear. Ran, does that make you happy? Ji Zongguo and Li Huijin were being forced to eat beef by the servants. Ye Ninghan sneered, I want them to know that anyone who bullies my Ran will pay 100-fold price. Ran, are you happy now? Jianran glanced sideways at Ye Ninghan, forcing a faint smile. Ye Ninghan wasn't satisfied with such a smile. If you don't feel like smiling, don't force it. I'll make you willingly smile at me. With that, he released his pheromones again. Jianran froze. He hadn't expected Ye Ninghan to try to force him into heat. Ye Ninghan took him into the bedroom. Ran, as long as you ask, I'll stop. Jianran was in agony, but he knew better than to resist. He knew he couldn't submit. Being marked and asking to be marked were two different things. He curled up tightly, trying to hold on to the last shred of dignity. Even though he knew his dignity had disappeared the moment he fell in love with Ye Linhan, Jiren's vision began to blur. He could no longer clearly see Ye Linhan's face, only smell the scent of an alpha belonging to Ye Linhan. The person he had loved for so many years was right in front of him. Just by saying those words, he could completely become his Omega and end his current suffering. But he couldn't. Jiran bit his lips hard. No, if he were marked, he would be recorded. Ye Linhan wasn't feeling well either. Why do you always resist me? What should I do with you? Jiran was searching for something under the pillow. When Ye Linhan made a move, Jiran raised his hand, pressing a sharp object against Ye Linhan's neck. Take your hand away, or I won't be polite. Ye Linhan's anger flared up. I know you have the guts, but Ran, aren't you afraid I'll kill Sheng Weiking and your family? Jiran replied with a snort. But I want a fair relationship. If you want to mark me, agree to one condition. Ye Linhan took Jiran to the Civil Affairs Bureau. What Jiran wanted most was finally happening, but he never expected that just a little red book would keep him spinning in circles. In the last episode, Ye Linhan forcefully released pheromones, and Jiran, to avoid being marked, pressed a shard of porcelain against Ye Linhan's throat. Give me a fair relationship. Marry me. Ye Linhan curled his lips. You want to marry me? Ran, you still love me, don't you? Jiran shook his head. I just want to see if you have the guts. Jiran knew Ye Yunping would never approve, and Ye Linhan's family wouldn't agree to him marrying Jiran. Only if they fought would he have a chance to escape. Ye Linhan sensed Jiran's intent. Are you provoking me? Go ahead, draw it. A smear of white flashed, then Ye Linhan struggled. Jiran turned the shard towards himself. If this is the case, if you use a gun, I will kill the child or commit suicide. Ye Linhan grabbed Jiran's hand. Jiran, don't be impulsive. Don't threaten me with yourself. You know I never want to see you hurt. He bit Jiran's arm fiercely. This temporary mark will make you feel better. Jiran breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily, it was just temporary. Who knows if it will be the same next time. Ye Linhan stood up. I'll think about what you said. Until Ye Linhan left, Jiran slowly opened his eyes. This time, he considered it a win. He wouldn't be afraid of Ye Linhan anymore. The next morning, as soon as dawn broke, he heard Ye Linhan shout, Get dressed and come downstairs. I'm waiting for you at the door. Jiran even sensed a trace of gentleness in his words. This side of Ye Linhan was so unusual it made Jiran cautious. Ye Linhan didn't mention their destination, and Jiran didn't ask. But when they arrived, Jiran's eyes widened. Ye Linhan leaned closer to his ear and asked, Surprised? Jiran hesitated. He looked at the man beside him. You want to marry me? Ye Linhan smiled. Isn't this what you asked for? But if I fulfill your request, you have to keep your promise. Jiran felt a surge of emotions. Initially forcing him to marry was just a desperate act, counting on Ye Linhan's family not agreeing. Ye Linhan looked at his shocked face. Why so surprised? Or did you never think of marrying me? Were you just playing with me? He pulled Jiran into his arms. All right, cheer up. I don't want to see such an expression on our marriage. Certificate photo. Jiran's feelings were complicated. He had always longed for this day, but now he couldn't feel happy. Ye Linhan picked him up. I'll carry you in. The director of the Civil Affairs Bureau was waiting for them. Master Ye, you're here. Please, come inside. The director sneaked a peek. Wasn't Ye Linhan's fiancée supposed to be a beautiful and outstanding girl? Ye Linhan clearly noticed. He said coldly, Is there a problem? The director quickly replied, No problem. I'll handle it right away. Master Ye, please provide both of your documents. Jiran's household registration and ID were at home and couldn't be brought. Ye Linhan directly took them out. I've got them. Since you agreed, I naturally prepared all the procedures. At this moment, Jiran felt he wasn't dreaming. Ye Linhan was really going to marry him. He seemed different from before. Not as pitiful as he once thought. Though hurt time and again, he still used his mind. But he desperately wanted a home. Ye Linhan was giving him what he desired most, and he couldn't refuse. The process was simple. A few minutes later, 2 red books were completed. Jiran took the red book, his fingers trembling uncontrollably. Ye Linhan stared at him, then leaned into his ear. Ran, let me mark you tonight, okay? Jiran willingly wanted to be marked, but he realized it was all fake. The last episode mentioned Ye Linhan taking Jiran to get a marriage certificate, which deeply moved Jiran. He longed so much for a home. Ye Linhan naturally noticed this. He leaned closer to Jiran. Ran, Let me mark you tonight, okay? Back at the villa, Jiren still felt like he was in a dream, holding on to the red book. He was really with Ye Linhan. This wasn't a dream. From now on, he would have a home. Ye Linhan instructed the servants to prepare dinner to celebrate. Jiren suddenly thought of something. He hurried upstairs and carefully placed the red book in an envelope. Important things must be kept safe. At that moment, a heartfelt smile appeared on Jiran's face as he stood on the balcony, gazing at the looming dark clouds in the distance. He hoped that every day from now on would be as good as today. Ye Linhan opened the door and saw Jiran standing by the window. Over the years, his appearance and figure seemed never to change, always the way that most captivated him. A feeling stirred in his heart as he held Jiran's hand. Are you happy? Jiran was happy, but he didn't show it. Ye Linhan was in a good mood this time too. Ran, from today, you're my wife. This sentence was something Jiran had been waiting for a long time. They hadn't felt this warmth between them for a long time. Jiren couldn't help but wonder if they could return to their ideal happy life like before. Ye Linhan stroked Jiran's hair. Ran, I can give you the catalyst for the pheromone mark tonight. Jiran was a little surprised. Why do that? Ye Linhan put on a hurt expression. Ran, today is our wedding night. Don't you want me to mark you? Jiran hesitated a bit. What Ye Linhan said was true. The important thing was that he was willing to be marked by Ye Linhan. Ye Linhan whispered, Ran, I realized. I will cherish you. Jiran thought maybe he could trust him one more time, just one last time. After dinner, Jiran looked at Ye Linhan. He felt a bit nervous. He was an alpha who only ever thought about marking others, never about being marked himself. The moment Jiran's hand landed in his palm, a gleam of golden light flashed in Ye Linhan's eyes. Before long, pheromones without a match began to emanate from Jiran. Ye Linhan pushed Jiran down. This time, he could finally mark Jiran. Just then, his phone rang. Ye Linhan frowned irritably. All the gentleness on his face disappeared. The voice of the anxious butler came from the phone. Young master, something has happened. The young lady is spotting. Jiran's expression turned to shock. Young lady? Do you mean Gan Rui? What does spotting mean? Could Gan Rui be? Jiran finally realized that Ye Linhan had a child. This time he was truly shocked. Yet he had no idea that this was all part of Gan Rui's plan. Last time it was said that Jiran was touched by Ye Linhan, and decided to let him mark him. But this time, Ye Linhan received a call, revealing that Gan Rui was already carrying Ye Linhan's child. Ye Linhan commanded, I'm coming over now, make sure to get the best doctors. He knew that only with an heir could he give Ran a legitimate status. But it was the first time Jiran saw Ye Linhan this worried about someone, and that person wasn't him, making it all the more painful. Jiran suddenly felt a deep sense of irony and ridiculousness. They had just registered their marriage that morning, and now his alpha was going to take care of someone else. 10 minutes ago, he thought he was the happiest person in the world. 10 minutes later, he realized he was a complete fool. But now that he was already with him, he couldn't just let Ye Linhan treat him however he wanted, so he quickly ran out. Ye Linhan had just picked up his car keys, when Jiran grabbed his wrist. Don't go. Ye Linhan, though reluctant, said, Gan Rui fell and might have hurt the child. Summoning his courage, Jiran asked, Your child? Ye Linhan didn't plan on hiding it. As he pushed Jiran away, he said, Yes, my child, but this isn't how you think. Wait for me to come back and I'll explain everything to you. He then turned and continued walking towards the door. At that moment, Jiran suddenly raised his voice. Ye Linhan, I'm in a sensitive period. Ye Linhan hesitated for a moment. If the child couldn't be saved, then it would be the end for him and Ran. He had finally managed to be with Ran and couldn't just watch things go this way. So, suppressing his emotions, he coldly replied, It's just a sensitive period. Bear with it, and it will pass. Jiran's face turned pale, and the door slammed shut. In Jiran's mind, there was only Ye Linhan's indifferent tone. He realized that this was truly the most cruel statement in the world. He was exhausting his love, shamelessly loving him. How much courage did it take? How much pain did he endure? He raised his hand and slapped himself. Jiran, how long will you remain this naive before you understand? Ye Linhan doesn't care about you. If he cared even a little, how could he bear to let you be heartbroken and upset? Please wake up now. Meanwhile, in another room, was the baby all right? The doctor said, The situation isn't good at all. After all, this pregnancy was achieved using cultivation from years ago. Gan Rui's eyes darkened. I don't care what method you use. You must save this child. The doctor was a little nervous. I'll do my best, but at this moment, you need an alpha's support. Worry flashed in Ganrui's eyes. If we do this, won't Ye Linghan find out? The doctor reassured him. The records say he won't. There's still 8 months to go. By then, whatever you want to do should already be done. Ganrui smiled sinisterly. Yes, by then I will have gotten my revenge, and the Ye family will be mine. On the wedding night, Jiran almost died, yet Ye Linghan stayed at the hospital with Ganrui for 3 days. After Ye Linghan left to see Ganrui, Jiran was engulfed in unbearable pain, not just physical but emotional. His whole body felt like it was burning, like thousands of ants biting him constantly. His consciousness became increasingly blurry. In the chaos, memories flashed through his mind. Ran, be with me. I'll make you the happiest person in the world. You will be my rightful other half. You are my one and only. Jiran, what are you? In my eyes, you're just a plaything to pass the time. Ye Linghan's voice echoed in his mind, alternating between loving and indifferent. Jiran couldn't take the physical and mental torment anymore. He began banging his head against the headboard. The servants outside heard the noise and wanted to come in and check, but another servant stopped them. I advise you not to meddle. Young master doesn't like him. Otherwise, why would he leave him here and go to be with the young master of the Gan family? Isn't Ye Linghan doing this to punish him? To me, he looks like he's just trying to attract sympathy. If he wants to act, let him act to his heart's content. A flash of lightning lit up the scene in the bedroom. Jiran was curled up at the edge of the bed, trembling violently. Inhibitors. I need inhibitors. He couldn't bear it anymore. Whoever you are, please give me inhibitors. But when he opened the door, there was no one outside. Forcing himself to stand, he staggered downstairs. His body was too weak, and he stumbled, hitting his head on the corner of the stairs. A wave of intense pain surged over him, sweeping away his consciousness. Meanwhile, in the VIP ward, Ye Linghan looked distractedly at the time. You need to be more careful. Be cautious from now on. Ever since he came to the hospital, he had felt uneasy. Could it be that something had happened to Jiran? Ganrui noticed Ye Linghan's desire to leave and grabbed his sleeve. Where are you going? The doctor said that the fetus needs an alpha's company in the early stages to grow healthily. Ye Linghan stood up. My affairs don't concern you. Take care of yourself. If we lose the heir, you won't have a good time either. As Ye Linghan was about to leave the ward, he ran into Ye Yunping. Ye Yunping scolded him. How could something so big happen without informing the family? If something happens to the Ye family heir, can you bear the responsibility? Ye Linghan replied indifferently. I only found out about this recently. I'll be more careful in the future. With that, Ye Yunping forcefully pushed Ye Linghan back into the ward. Stay here and take good care of Xiaoruo. What he needs most right now is your company. Whatever else can wait. Only when Xiaoruo is asleep can you leave. Ye Linghan could only stay impatiently in the hospital. It wasn't until Ganrui was completely asleep that he left the ward. As soon as he stepped out, he was met with a slap from Ye Yunping. You ungrateful brat, how dare you secretly register your marriage with Jiran? Ye Linghan said, let's get a divorce. This time Jiran finally stood up for himself, showing his strength. He wanted Ye Linghan to leave Jiran and go to accompany Ganrui. Just as he left the ward, Ye Lingping came to meet him. With a loud slap, you rebellious son, how dare you get a marriage certificate with Jiran behind your parents' backs? Ye Linghan didn't care. It's just a marriage certificate. There's no need to be so agitated, is there? Ye Lingping was trembling with anger. What were you thinking? How could someone like him be fit to be the young master's spouse of the Ye family? Ye Linghan's eyes were firm. Whatever your standards are for the young master's spouse, in my heart, he is my one and only. Ye Lingping frowned. We won't oppose your actions, but what about Ganrui? Ye Linghan replied, for the child's sake, I will fulfill my duties as a father, but I can't spend all my time on him. After all, today is an important day for Ranran and me, Ye Lingping warned. Don't let the news of your marriage to Jiran get out. The Ye family cannot afford such disgrace. When Ye Linghan returned to the villa, Jiran was covered in injuries and was holding a book. Ye Linghan walked over, touching his forehead. How did you get hurt like this? He was about to talk about last night when Jiran suddenly raised his head, cutting him off. Ye Linghan, let's get divorced. Jiran's sudden words stunned Ye Linghan. What did you say? He thought maybe it was just a sleepless night making him hallucinate. Jiran stared straight at him. I said, let's get divorced. I don't want to live like this anymore. Ye Linhan's pupils dilated. He gritted his teeth. What are you making a fuss about? I can explain what happened last night. Is this necessary? Jiran felt incredulous. How can you rationally and boldly say these things? How can you feel at ease spending the night with someone else? Jiran pushed Ye Linhan away. We got married, so shouldn't we be loyal to each other? Ye Linhan got anxious. It's nothing between her and me. I just need an heir to shut my father's mouth. Jiran pulled his wrist away with a sneer. Ye Linhan approached him. Everything I'm doing is for you. If you refuse to accept this, it will make my efforts to provide for you worthless. Ye Linhan's eyes were sharp. At that moment, Jiran finally understood that being with him was just for convenience. Ye Linhan sneered. If not, what? What do you have that makes me unable to leave you? Jiran felt it was laughable. He laughed until tears came out. This was just a game, and only I took it seriously. Jiran's laughter irritated Ye Linhan. He grabbed Jiran's arm. What are you laughing at? Jiran stopped laughing, his voice flat. I don't need your convenience. I won't force you to be with me. Tomorrow we'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to complete the procedures. Ye Linhan's tone hardened. Jiran, have I been too good to you? Is that why you think you can behave recklessly? Jiran turned around and stopped looking at him. I'll give you 1 day to think it over. See you at 8 tomorrow. Ye Linhan's eyes were cold, his teeth clenched. He spat out 3 words. Don't even think about it. He pulled Jiran's hand. You will move back with me to the Ye family's main house today. Gan Rui needs care. You'll take care of him. Don't you want to enter the Ye family's main gate? Gan Rui's health is not good right now. This is your chance to prove yourself. Once the heir problem is solved, you'll be the rightful young master's spouse of the Ye family. Jiran found it unbelievable. Shameless, this is truly shameless. No need, you take care of your child yourself. I don't have such habits. Don't worry, Ye Linhan. I won't interfere with your relationship with Gan Rui. Once tomorrow is over, I promise to disappear from your sight completely. Ye Linhan was puzzled. He had already arranged everything for Ranran. He bore so much pressure for him, and even thought of ways to make him the young master's spouse of the Ye family. Why didn't he appreciate it? He grabbed Jiran's shoulder again. Are you playing hard to get again? You've used this trick many times and it never works. Jiran turned to look at him. No matter what you think, this time I'm determined to leave. Jiran's resoluteness made Ye Linhan feel afraid. Ye Linhan once again used someone's life to threaten Jiran. Jiran had no choice but to go to the Ye family's old mansion and start a discussion. When Jiran firmly stated that he wanted to separate, Ye Linhan was stunned. He had never seen such a resolute look in Jiran's eyes. He thought maybe he had been too lenient with Jiran, giving him an inch, and he took a mile. Ye Linhan stepped closer to Jiran, grabbing his chin. Jiran, I advise you to obediently follow the path I've set for you. I know you don't care about your life, but don't forget about Sheng Wei-Qing and Xia Yuandan. Jiran's pupils contracted. Even if he didn't care about himself or his family, he couldn't let his friends be in danger. Ye Linhan forcibly turned Jiran's head. We're already married. Be obedient and don't make me angry. I'll give you everything I promised. Ranran, I will mark you soon, and we will have our future together. Once we have a child, the Ye family will recognize you. Listen to me and go back to the Ye family's old mansion to take care of Gan Rui. At least in front of my parents. Behave well. They will accept you. In the end, Jiran still went to the Ye family's old mansion. Ye Linhan told him to be well behaved at home. Whatever the elders say, try not to refute it. I'm here, and I won't let them do anything to you. Who allowed you to bring him back? Ye Linhan's angry roar echoed through the grand hall, his words filled with undisguised disgust and disdain for Jiran. How could someone like him be allowed into the Ye family's house? Get him out! Jiran knew a long time ago that Ye Linping disliked him. His drooping eyes briefly flashed with a cold glint before it quickly vanished. He tugged on Ye Linhan's clothes, looking somewhat helplessly at the man beside him. I think I'd better go back. Ye Linhan never thought Jiran would use such a dependent tone with him. He immediately stood in front of Jiran. I brought Ranran back. At this moment, Duan Yijin heard the noise and came downstairs, accompanied by Gan Rui. Ah Han, why did you bring him back? Ye Linhan replied. Mom, I thought since Gan Rui is not in good health, and I don't have time to take care of him, having Ranran stay at home would help. Duan Yijin was a bit surprised. Jiran is an alpha. How can he take care of your fiancé? Ye Linhan held Jiran's hand. Ranran and I are already together. He's also on the verge of going into his heat period, and soon he will become an Omega. Ganrei looked at him with innocent, teary eyes. Yishao, you and Jiran got a marriage certificate? Ye Linhan stated plainly. We got the certificate a few days ago, but we haven't announced it publicly. Ganrui's eyes immediately turned red. Then what about our engagement? He looked at Duan Yizhen in bewilderment and pain. Aunt, I think I should leave. I shouldn't be here. Duan Yizhen quickly comforted Ganrui. Ye Linhan's face was cold. I thought your feelings for Ahan were genuine. Back then I gave you 5 million, and you still didn't leave Ahan. I didn't expect you to involve the entire Ye family. Jiran, I underestimated you. Over here, Ganrui was still acting. Duan Yizhen grabbed Ye Linhan's hand, urging him to calm Ganrui down. Xiaorui is the apple of our Yi family's eye. Ye Linhan replied coldly, No one is forcing anyone. Jiran is not a petty person either. Ye Linhan's face was stern. The fact that you got a marriage certificate must not be made public. Until the heir is born, keep a low profile. Ye Linghan once again stood in front of Ye Ling. I know, I didn't intend to attack. Then, turning to look at Ye Ling, Ran, I think you wouldn't mind. If Ye Ling used to mind, now she really doesn't. If she's not concerned, of course she doesn't mind. Such compliance from Ye Linghan made Ye Linghan particularly proud. Mom and Dad, look, Ye Ling doesn't mind, so things will be arranged like this. After that, she took Ye Ling to her future room. However, Ganrui was still crying, which made people feel particularly distressed. Duan Yizhen kept comforting her. This is Ahan's fault. Your uncle and I will stand up for you. Ganrui leaned on Duan Yizhen's shoulder. Her sad expression was quickly replaced by a look of murderous intent. She must take care of Jiren before she can be on equal footing with her. It turns out we still have tempers. Watch how she deals with the rest of the Ye family so domineering. Ever since Ye Linghan brought Jiren back to the Ye family mansion, Ganrui decided to take care of Jiren before she can be on equal footing with her. At this time, the atmosphere at the dining table was very eerie. Ye Linghan was very attentive to Jiren, even specially asking the servants to make her favorite dishes. She added a piece of stir-fried beef with chili to Jiren's plate. Ran here. Ganrui watched this scene, her whole body tensed, and her grip on the chopsticks tightened. Ye Yunping also showed a hostile look. Jiren just focused on eating, ignoring everything else. In Ye Linghan's eyes, Jiren is obedient and well-behaved, truly too adorable. Ye Yunping's temples throbbed upon seeing this scene, finding it disgraceful to be so enchanted by someone so lowly, utterly lacking the demeanor of a Ye family heir. She couldn't bear to watch anymore. You all eat, I'm full. She glared at Jiren before leaving. Jiren felt her gaze and lowered her head. Ye Yunping also couldn't understand what charm Jiren possessed, making Ye Linghan defy everything, even talking back to their parents. Ye Linghan patted Jiren's head. Ran, I have a business trip tomorrow. Be more mindful and don't upset my parents. I think they won't make things difficult for you. Jiren smiled faintly and nodded. In fact, Jiren knew that even if she didn't trouble the Ye family, trouble would come finding her. Sure enough, the next day, as soon as Jiren descended the stairs, a teacup flew towards her, which she quickly blocked with her hand. Ye Yunping's furious voice followed. Jiren, do you think just because Ahang protects you, you can disregard me? Jiren looked at her calmly. Mr. Ye, I don't understand what you're talking about. Ye Yunping slapped a newspaper into her hands. Open your eyes and look clearly. If you don't give me a reasonable explanation for this today, you can get out now. Jiren's gaze also flickered upon, seeing the newspaper content. It was leaked that she and Ye Linghan registered their marriage. Who did this? Ye Yunping continued to curse. Who do you think you are to use such despicable means to coerce a confession? And you dare to delude yourself into thinking you can enter the Yi family's door. Jiren looked up at Ye Yunping. This has nothing to do with me. Ye Yunping was unfortunate, as he was convinced that Jiren was the culprit. You still dare to argue. When Ling'an comes back, you two will divorce. Now that I'm divorced from Ye Linghan, Mr. Ye, please use the Ye family's power to sever my ties with Ye Linghan right now. Can't do it, can you? If it weren't for him threatening me with my friend, I would have left Beicheng long ago. It's not that I want to be entangled with him. In fact, Ye Yunping knew that what Jiren said might be true, because his son had indeed done many forceful things. Jiren threw the newspaper back with an air of dominance. It's your son Ye Linghan who won't let me go. Jiran declared. Ye Yunping was taken down a peg, his face red and white, looking extremely ugly. On this side, Duan Yizhen and Gan Rui were coming downstairs. You, with your ulterior motives, started plotting the moment you walked in the door. You think by spreading this, you can become the young Madam of the Yi family? I'm telling you, there's no chance. Jiran was also very displeased. I've never thought of clinging to your family's door. Duan Yizhen raised his hand as if to strike Jiran. You even dare to talk back? Jiran forcefully grasped his hand and then fiercely threw it off. Duan Yizhen was flung into Gan Rui behind him. His blunt stone becomes tense. Is something wrong with Xiao Rui? Did you bump into something? Gan Rui reluctantly returns. I'm fine, Mom. Duan Yizhen looks at Jiran even more furiously. You malicious creature, you almost made me bump into Xiao Rui's stomach and you find it funny? You hit me, and you think I shouldn't hit back? It's over. When Ye Linghan is not around, someone dares to bully. Gan Rui decides to find a group of strong alphas. Last episode mentioned that they were angry with the Ye family couple. Duan Yizhen was so angry that he was shaking. Unbelievable, truly unbelievable. Gan Rui quickly comforts. Mother Ning, don't be angry. I think he didn't do it on purpose. He probably just wants the family to acknowledge his identity. That's why he made the marriage public. Duan Yizhen thinks Gan Rui is too naive for still speaking for him. Such despicable actions should be questioned and disciplined, to let him know the family rules. After saying this, he calls a group of bodyguards. The bodyguards quickly subdue the person, and then pin him to the floor. Duan Yizhen is great, hitting hard until he admits his wrong. With every hit of the stick, blood spurts out and falls on the floor. He stubbornly straightens his back, never begging for mercy. His back is a bloody mess, the white shirt soaking with blood. After the Ye family couple had vented their anger, the person is then dragged away by the bodyguards. He is locked in a damp wine cellar. Things gradually became blurry, and he felt he was starting to hallucinate. Who's there? It was as if time had reverted to the day of his anniversary with Ye Linhan. Why aren't you here yet? I've been waiting for you for so long. As she took his hand, Ye Linhan, I think I'm lost. I can't find you anywhere. Ye Linhan looked at him with a smile. Don't worry if you're lost, I'll find you. I always keep my promises. Let's go, the day is almost over. We might be late for our date. He followed her. Why would we be late? We're together every day. We can go on a date any time. The scene shifted, and Ye Linhan was hugging him, promising to make him breakfast for the rest of her life. After breakfast, they would watch the sunrise together. She promised they would have a beach wedding and that she would give him a unique ceremony. Ye Linhan stretched out her arms and said, Ran, come here. Just as he was about to embrace Ye Linhan, her figure shattered. It turned out that everything was really too late. Could he die here? After the plane landed, Ye Linhan immediately took out her phone to call Ye Linhan, but he did not show up. Why does Ye Linhan without warning suddenly seem so emotional? What's going on? Gan Rui originally planned to check on Qin Ran. Unexpectedly, as soon as she walked near the corner, she smelled a whiff of pheromones. This scent was very familiar. It had appeared at the masquerade ball before. It was Qin Ran's pheromones. She actually entered her heat at this moment. Heaven was really helping her. She turned her head to the people behind her and said, Go find a few bodyguards. They all must be alphas, and they need to be strong. Qin Ran is in heat. We need to help her. Qin Ran was almost marked by other alphas. Fortunately, Ye Linhan fought his way back. In the last episode, Qin Ran suddenly went into heat. Gan Rui actually found 2 strong alphas for her. At this moment, Qin Ran was lying on the cold floor of the cellar. Because of the fever, she didn't have much strength. Just then the door suddenly opened and a beam of light shone in. Qin Ran struggled to lift her head. Who? Several alphas quickly surrounded her. Gan Rui was smiling triumphantly behind them. At this hour, the Ye family was fast asleep. No one would care about what happened here. Do you think after being marked by them, Ye Linhan would still care? At this moment, Qin Ran was extremely sensitive to alpha pheromones. She resisted desperately, using all her strength to kick away an alpha. Those 2 alphas are just thrilled. They like it that spicy. Gan Rui told the servants beside her to find someone to guard the door. Don't let her escape. At this moment, Gan Rui is in a good mood. Even if she's discovered harming Qin Yin at the ceremony, it doesn't matter. They wouldn't dare to do anything to her. As long as she has this child, she can do whatever she wants in the Ye family. It was at this moment she bumped into someone. Upon seeing clearly who it was, she was terrified. Mr. Ye, why are you back? Ye Linhan asked about Qinyan. At this moment, Ganrui only wanted to stall for time. Weren't you supposed to take tomorrow's flight? She glanced at Ye Linhan. How did he come back early? Did he hear something? It had to be now of all times. Ye Linhan was in a bad mood, becoming agitated from the moment he couldn't get through to Qinyan's phone, feeling frustrated and unable to do anything. He gripped Ganrui's hand tightly. I'm asking you a question. Where is Qinyan? Ganrui, taking the opportunity, fell into Ye Linhan's arms. Mr. Ye, you're hurting me. I don't know where Qinyan is. Ye Linhan, disgusted, pushed her away. You clearly have Qinyan's pheromones on you, yet you claim you don't know where she is. Then he strode towards the direction of the 9th building, very anxious inside. Ganrui was continuously fretful. Could it be that something really happened to Qinyan? The scent was faint, but indeed Qinyan's. He must find her as soon as possible, or the consequences would be unimaginable. As soon as Ye Linhan arrived at the 9th building, a servant stopped him. Mr. Yeah, there's no one inside. You've rushed back so late, you should first. Ye Linhan simply said, no need, and pushed the door open. What he saw inside made his heart sink. She instantly cast a spell and charged forward quickly. Daring to run away from my people, you're courting death. She kicked one of the alphas to the ground. She then turned and fiercely punched another alpha. She took off her jacket and threw it over them. She would make them pay back 10-fold or even 100-fold for today's events. Get out of here immediately. She tightly hugged Jingren, her heart aching. Her person had almost been marked by someone else. Ran, I'm sorry I was late. Finally, Jingren was marked by Ye Linhan. From now on, Jingren would only belong to Ye Linhan, and could never leave. Previously, Jingren had almost been marked by another alpha. Fortunately, Ye Linhan arrived in time. Ran, I'm sorry I was late, I'm sorry. Ye Linhan picked up Jingren and strode outside the cult. Her Ran had almost been bullied by someone else. She comforted Jingren. Don't be afraid, I'll take you to take a bath. When Ganrui and the others arrived, what they saw was Ye Linhan holding Jiran in his arms. Duan Yizhen immediately asked, Linhan, why did you suddenly come back? Since this kid has broken the rules, your father and I have punished him to Jijiao Siguo. This has nothing to do with Xiaorui. Ye Linhan interrupted her. Mom, I don't want to hear about Ran's mistakes anymore. Right now I need to go upstairs to take care of her. Duan Yizhen quickly grabbed him. Son, you mustn't be impulsive. While you still haven't consummated your marriage with her, divorce her now. You should be with Xiaorui instead. Ye Linhan's eyebrows knitted together, and his gaze turned cold. If I say she's worthy, then she's worthy. Duan Yizhen wanted to say something else, but was intimidated by Ye Linhan's anger. She could only watch helplessly as Ye Linhan carried Jiran upstairs. Ye Linhan gently placed Jiran on the bed and then covered her with a blanket. Ran, how are you feeling? I'm going to call the doctor right now. But Jiran reached out her hand, and directly pulled at the collar of his shirt. Don't go, she said painfully. She hoped Ye Linhan could help her. Ye Linhan's heart pounded wildly, his eyes filled with frenzy. He grasped Jiran's hand tightly. Ran, you can't escape this time. The determination in the man's words made Jiran suddenly come to her senses, realizing the person in front of her was Ye Linhan. Her body stiffened, and she forcefully pushed him away. No, she thought. She didn't want to be marked by Ye Linhan. If marked, she could never leave her side for the rest of her life. Not knowing where the strength came from, Jiran suddenly pushed Ye Linhan away. Then, she walked unsteadily towards the door. Ye Linhan grabbed her hand again. Still trying to run? Her eyes showed a hint of anger. Kiss me, she said. You were so proactive just now. Turning your back on me so quickly? Do you hate me that much? Don't want me to mark you? Jiran didn't even think before responding. No, you disgust me. I am extremely repulsed by you. These words made Ye Linhan lose all rationality. You hate me? I did so much for you, and this is how you repay me? She grabbed Jiran's chin and then threw her out harshly. Have you had enough? We are already married. Why won't you let me mark you? Jiran's mind was in chaos, but the thought of divorce was very clear. I want a divorce. Ye Linhan pressed her head down. You dare? Before finishing her sentence, she flipped Jiran over. The pain on her neck made Jiran feel it was too late. Everything was too late. A blue mark of being claimed appeared on her fair wrist. Ye Linhan felt particularly satisfied. From now on, Jiran truly belonged to her. she could never leave her again. Now that he's been fully marked and Ye Linhan has discovered the medicine in his hands, last episode, Ye Linhan finally completed the seal with Jiran. She sets up a background for Jiran, and it would be so good if he could always be this obedient, but some things must be resolved immediately. Downstairs, Ye Linping is obviously waiting early. Ye Linhan says that Ranran has been feeling unwell these past few days, and needs her company, and she has handed over company matters to the vice president. Ye Linping looks displeased, saying, "You even care about the company? I'm telling you, Xiao Rui has to go to the hospital for a checkup today, and you must accompany him." A layer of frost appears on Ye Linhan's face.
Impossible. I just marked a few people last night. I can't possibly leave him and be with Gan Rui these few days. Yi Yunping was furious. What did you say? Are you crazy? You marked the servants? Yi Linghan said sternly, his mark will only be given to Ranran. Whether you accept it or not, Ranran is his one and only love. Yi Yunping's face turned pale with anger. You know how he embarrassed us yesterday and almost hurt Xiaorui? Duanishan hurriedly added, "Son, don't worry about the marking, it can be washed off. Xiaorui is our real daughter-in-law." Standing on the high steps, Yi Linghan looked down at them. "Dad, we both know why what happened yesterday. Do you really think that I don't have any eyes and ears in this house and let you bully Ranran? If he was really touched by those alphas yesterday, I wouldn't just be talking today." Yi Yunping burst into a rage, "You've gone too far. You're talking back to your parents for a good-for-nothing." Yi Linghan's face was expressionless. "Dad, watch your health. You should retire and enjoy life at home. Don't always get angry." After that, he turned to Gan Rui, "And you, what happened last night was my bottom line. If it wasn't for the child, I wouldn't let you stay in the Yi family. You better know your place." In the room, Ji Ran seemed to be having a nightmare. He didn't sleep well. The scenes in his mind appeared one after another. He opened his eyes abruptly, and the mark on his hand told him that he was really marked by Yi Linghan. Ji Ran felt a sense of despair wash over him. Suddenly, he thought of something and forced himself to sit up. He took out a small medicine bottle from his coat pocket. Fortunately, the medicine that Shang Weiqin gave him last time was still there. At this time, Menka shouted, and Jiran quickly hid his hand behind his back. Yellinghan ordered the doctor to check Jiran's back injury. The doctor wanted to go forward and help Jiran take off his clothes, but Jiran quickly said, "I'll do it myself." Yellinghan walked over and said, "Let me help you." Looking at the wounds on Jiran's body, Yellinghan felt very distressed. His parents are too ruthless. How could they hurt him like this? He must be in so much pain, but Jiran said with a trembling voice, "It doesn't hurt." Yellinghan obviously noticed Jiran's tension. "Why is your fist clenched so tightly? Does it hurt that much?" Jiran forced himself to calm down. "I'm fine. You go out first." There was a hint of threat in Jiran's eyes. "Open your hand, Ranran." Jiran felt nauseous. Could it be that he was really? In the last episode, Jiran was injected with. The medicine in her hand was discovered, the medicine intended for someone's inheritance. The bottle fell to the ground, scattering white pills all over. Yi Linghan picked up a pill, her eyes narrowing. "What is this?" Her eyes flashed with a sharp glint. Yi Linghan gripped Jinran's chin. "You wouldn't be taking birth control again, would you?" Jinran clenched her jaw. "I will never let you have your way." Her words infuriated Yi Linghan. "Say that again." Jinran fearlessly lifted her chin, staring coldly at her. "I'll say it 10,000 times. Even if you force me, if I don't want to, you can't have me." Yi Linghan's anger unexpectedly subsided. Good, very good. She would see who was stronger, Jinran's will or her own. Jinran once again fell into despair. Meanwhile, Gan Rui paced back and forth. Ever since young Master Yi and Yi Linghan got married, he had been with her almost every day. If this continued, Jinran might really become the young madam of the Yi family. By then, she wouldn't be able to rely on her status as the heir to continue her deal with Yi Linghan. She had to find a way to become the young madam of the Yi family as soon as possible. So she thought of an idea. "Mr. Yi, madam, it's not good. Miss Xiaorui is injured." Yi Linghan was taken aback. She turned her head to Jiran. "You stay here. I'll go out and have a look." As soon as Yi Linghan left, Jiran went to the bathroom. But no matter how hard she scrubbed, she couldn't get rid of Yi Linghan's scent. Ji-run looked at the blue mark on her wrist and wished she could just peel off that patch of skin. She really couldn't understand why. A long time later, the light in the emergency room went off. Duanijin anxiously asked the doctor, "How is she?" The doctor took off his mask. "Mrs. Yi, the wound has been stitched up. There is no life-threatening danger." However, Duanijin immediately became nervous. "However what? Is there something wrong with her stomach?" "That's not it," the doctor replied. "It's just, judging by the cuts on her wrist, it appears she might be suffering from depression. If she had arrived any later, things might have been different." Duanijin angrily hammered on Yi Linghan. "How many times have I told you to be good to Xiaorui? But look what you've done. For a lowly thing, you've hurt Xiaorui like this." Yi Linghan wanted to retort, but the words died in her throat. Even if it was a deal, she had suffered a lot for this child. "Why don't you go home first, Dad? I'll stay here with Xiaorui." After 3 days of observation at the hospital, Xiaorui returned to the Yi family mansion. Ji-run stood upstairs, watching as Yi Linghan helped Xiaorui up the stairs. The intimate scene between the two brought a smug smile to Ganrui's face. She lowered her head and chuckled self-deprecatingly. "So what if I have the marriage certificate? I still feel like a third wheel." Seeing this, Yi Linghan felt a surge of nausea and ran into the bathroom, covering her mouth, trying to throw up. But nothing came out. She gripped the sink, taking deep breaths. Could it be true? Yi Linghan remembered Yi Ran mentioning pregnancy before and began to suspect if Ganrui was really pregnant. In the previous episode, Ganrui kept throwing up in front of everyone. Yi Linghan, for once having a moment of clarity, not only apologized to everyone on behalf of her mother, but also chased after them, promising to have Ganrui over for a visit soon. Ganrui didn't take the bait. As Yi Linghan tried to speak, Duanijin caught up. "You are defying your own parents for her? I can't do anything about you, but what about your child? Are you abandoning your own child too? You need to be a father to your child. Don't forget the promise you made at the hospital. Xiaorui's room is too small and stuffy, not suitable for the baby. You have to let Xiaorui move to the master bedroom and live with you tonight." Yi Linghan's first reaction was to refuse. "No way. Ranran and I are together now. The master bedroom is only for us. Duanijin wouldn't have it. Xiaorui is pregnant. How can she sleep in the guest room? Tell Ji Ran to move to the basement and give her room to Xiaorui." Yi Linghan yelled back, "I said no, and I mean it." Since he thinks that with Yi Linghan's current level of control over her, it's not easy to escape while living in the main house, and now she's very likely pregnant. If Yi Linghan finds out, it'll be even harder for her to get away. So, since I had already agreed, I agreed to let her handle it. Yi Linghan was stunned. She didn't expect Yi Ran wouldn't even want to live in the same room with her. The basement of the Yi family house was not only messy but also damp and chaotic. As the door pushed open, a beam of light shone in. Yi Linghan pointed her flashlight and said, "He touched Jian's hair. I'm sorry for making you suffer. But I really couldn't take care of anyone else during this time. After all, he bears the responsibility of the Yi family's heir." Jian turned his head. "Who you take care of has nothing to do with me." Yi Linghan pulled him into his arms. "I know you've been wrong today. You can ask for anything you want, and I'll try my best to satisfy you." Jian was stunned. Yi Linghan actually asked him to make a request. So he tentatively said, "I want to go back to school and take the graduation exam." Yi Linghan hesitated. "I can let you go to school, but..." Jian knew that Yi Linghan was still afraid that he would run away. It seemed that he had to resort to some tricks. So he took the initiative to put his arm around Yi Linghan's shoulder. "What are you afraid of? I've already been marked by you. I can't leave you in this lifetime." Yi Linghan couldn't help but gulp. "Really?" Jian moved closer to him. "Don't you believe me?" Yi Linghan felt that he was really poisoned by Jian. In the end, he agreed to Jian's request, but Jian had to let him pick him up and drop him off from school. When Jian woke up, there was no one around him, and he was back in the main country. When was he brought back? He couldn't remember at all. Yi Linghan brought him breakfast here. "Didn't you say you were going to school? You've already slept through the first class." He said he had to get up quickly. Yi Linghan handed over the milk. "Don't worry about breakfast, I'll take you there in a minute." As soon as he smelled the food, he felt nauseous. Yi Linghan noticed it right away. Ran, are you pregnant? You haven't been feeling well lately." Yi Linghan seemed to have discovered Jian's pregnancy. In the last episode, we talked about Gonrui successfully attracting Yi Linhan's attention. She even intentionally bumped into Yi Linhan when she was going home. This scene was seen by Jian upstairs, and she felt a pang of jealousy. She rushed into the bathroom and threw up. Looking at her thin reflection in the mirror, she had a thought, could I be? She turned around and bumped into Yi Linhan, who was helping Gonrui. It was a real scare. Gonrui pretended to have a stomachache on purpose, but she felt it wasn't enough. She thought that even though Yi Linhan couldn't be with her now, she still had to make him completely disgusted with her. Taking advantage of Yi Linhan's concern, she said in a coquettish voice, "It's okay, I just feel a little nauseous. I wonder if a glass of milk would help." Yi Linhan wanted to pour it for her himself. He held me back, saying I couldn't leave him, that my stomach hurt too much, and I couldn't survive without the comfort of his alpha pheromones. Yi Linhan was still very clear-headed this time and didn't intend to let Ji-run go at all. Instead, Gonrui continued to say that he wanted to trouble Ji-run to get him milk. From here, it made me feel like Gonrui was intentionally creating trouble for himself. Why didn't he leave earlier if he felt so unwell? He had to wait until Gonrui had finished setting the stage for him to take the blame. Yi Linhan didn't even let him go get the milk initially. Ji-run seemed to believe him and then turned back and said, "I'll get it for you." He had to add, "You're not afraid I'll poison you, are you?" Eiji's transformation into a love-struck fool seems to have disappeared with his offline status. In the room, Yi Linhan continuously released soothing pheromones towards Gonrui. However, Gonrui's discomfort had nothing to do with Yi Linhan. Such a large amount of pheromones only made his stomach ache even more. He endured the discomfort and said that he felt much better, asking Yi Linhan to stop releasing pheromones. However, seeing Gonrui's increasingly pale face, Yi Linhan thought it wasn't enough and increased the release. This made Gonrui panic. No, I'm very comfortable. I'm just worried that Yishao's body will be overwhelmed by releasing so much at once. Yi Linhan confidently replied, "I'm fine." At this moment, Ji-run walked in with the warmed milk. He came just in time, as Gonrui was being overwhelmed by Yi Linhan's pheromones. However, looking at the milk in Ji-run's hand, he couldn't bring himself to drink it. He was already feeling suffocated by Yi Linhan's pheromones. Ji-run handed him the milk with a smirk. "Young Master Gon, have you changed your mind so quickly? Don't want to drink milk? Or did you just want to make things difficult for me by asking me to get it?" Gonrui, hearing this, could only take the milk due to Yi Linhan's presence. He forced himself to drink it down, enduring the nausea. However, the moment he finished it, his stomach cramped up. Yi Linhan shouted at Ji-run, "What did you put in the milk?" Ji-run feigned innocence. "The milk probably hasn't even reached his stomach yet. How can he have a stomachache already?" He looked coldly at Gonrui, who was clutching his stomach and putting on a show. "You're not seriously trying to accuse me of poisoning you, are you?" Gonrui, on the other hand, acted as if he was on his deathbed, making a big fuss. On the other side, Duanishan rushed in as soon as she heard Gonrui yelling. She anxiously asked, "Dahan, Xiaorui, what's wrong? Hurry up and call the doctor." She then glared at Ji-run without even knowing what happened. It was truly unbelievable. Yi Linhan quickly got up and helped Ji-run up. "Mom, stop it. Things haven't been investigated clearly yet." Seeing her son defending him like this, Duanishan became even more unreasonable. She pointed at Ji-run and accused, "He wants to poison Gonrui to death." Her words sounded even more real than what she had witnessed. Ji-run now understood what it meant to invite trouble by speaking carelessly. When the doctor arrived, Gonrui grabbed him and said, "I'm poisoned. Am I going to die?" This act left the doctor speechless. After a thorough examination, it turned out to be just indigestion. Despite the doctor's words, Duanishan repeatedly asked, "Are you sure he's okay?" The doctor was speechless. Gonrui's symptoms had nothing to do with the glass of milk. Only then did Duanishan believe him. She looked at Gonrui worriedly. "Xiaorui, Auntie thought it was Ji-run who poisoned you. You scared me to death." "Auntie is sorry, I didn't mean to frighten Jishao. He said he was going to poison the milk just now, and after I finished drinking it, my stomach started to hurt, so..." Seeing this, Ji-run was speechless. Everyone in the room seemed a bit out of their mind. He turned around and left without a word. Duanishan wanted to chase after him and continue arguing, but Yi Linhan stopped her. "Stop it. Besides, we misunderstood Ranran today. We should apologize." Duanishan only felt that her son was unfilial and didn't think he had done anything wrong. Apologizing to Ji-run was impossible. You won't apologize, then I will. She stopped Jiran, who was about to go downstairs. This time it was Gon Rue who wrongly accused you. I will definitely make him apologize to you. Jiran sneered after hearing this and said, there's no need. Yi Linhan tried to explain to him properly. Duan Yijin chased me down again. Linhan, you're now keeping secrets from your parents for him. I can't do anything about you, but what about the child? You don't want the child anymore? You must take responsibility as a father. Don't forget what you promised me at the hospital. Yi Linhan didn't want to argue with her any further. I haven't forgotten. Just say what you want to say. Duan Yijin unexpectedly demanded they move to the basement and let Gon Rue live in the master bedroom, saying it was good for the child. Yi Linhan firmly objected. It was impossible for him to let Ji Ran go to the basement. Ji Ran contemplated this, realizing it might be a chance to escape. Under Yi Linhan's control, escape from the master bedroom was impossible. Moreover, he was highly likely pregnant now. If Yi Linhan found out, escape would be even more impossible. So he threw down 3 words and turned to leave. Hearing this, Yi Linhan felt a heavy weight on his chest. He tried to grab Ji Ran's hand, but grasped only air. In the night, in the basement, Ji Ran didn't even have a blanket. He sat huddled on the bed. Just at this moment, the door suddenly opened. I thought it was Gon Rue causing trouble again in the middle of the night, but to my surprise, it was Yi Linhan. Seeing who it was, I was a little surprised. I'm here to accompany you, Ran. He walked to the bedside, squatted down, and said to me with guilt, I'm sorry for making you feel wronged. But he loved Gon Rue's unborn child, so he had an obligation to take care of her. I said coldly, it has nothing to do with me who you take care of. Yi Linhan hugged me with heartache. Ran, let me know that you have been wrong today. Whatever your request is, I will try my best to meet it. After hearing this, I was surprised. He actually asked me to make a request. Then I tentatively said, I want to go back to school, go to class, and take the final exam. Yi Linhan hesitated. Going back to school would mean leaving his sight. Seeing his hesitation, my heart ached. I had to make him agree. So I rarely held Yi Linhan's eyes with tenderness and said softly, what are you afraid of? I've been marked by you. I can't leave you in this lifetime. This trick really worked on Yi Linhan. This trick immediately made Yi Linhan's head spin. He was lost in my tenderness and agreed to my request, but he would pick me up and drop me off personally. Yi Linhan, who woke up the next day, didn't even know when Yi Linhan carried him upstairs. Yi Linhan, feeling refreshed, didn't forget to praise Yi Linhan for his good taste. A little shy, his voice even stuttered a little. He quickly got up and said, I'm leaving. Yi Linhan thoughtfully handed him a glass of warm milk. But looking at the milk in front of him, Gon Rue couldn't help but feel nauseous. Yi Linhan looked at him with concern. Ran, are you pregnant? Gon Rue would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. But as a perfect being, both an alpha and a maid, how could Ran let him get away with it? As soon as he was able to return to school, Ran immediately looked for evidence to expose Gon Rue's scheme. After finishing his checkup and leaving the hospital, Gon Rue was bombarded by a large group of reporters as soon as he opened the door. Young Master Gon, are you here for a checkup? We heard you're pregnant, who's the father? The barrage of questions left Gon Rue speechless. He had no idea who had tipped off the media. Gon Rue thought fast and decided to play dumb, but could he really talk his way out of this? Oh no, it's actually true. To get away from Yi Linhan, Gon Rue actually asked his friend to expose the despicable things he did to be with Yi Linhan. Reporters chased and blocked Gon Rue at the hospital, all wanting to get first-hand information. Unable to explain himself, Gon Rue pretended to faint to get away. However, both Gon Rue and Yi Linhan's parents thought Gon Rue fainted from being scared by the reporters and blamed Yi Linhan for not taking good care of him. Mr. Gon took this opportunity to demand an explanation from Yi Linhan, stating that they couldn't let Gon Rue be humiliated for nothing. Mr. Gon demanded that Yi Linhan immediately issue a statement clarifying his marital relationship with Gon Rue, hold a press conference to clarify his relationship with Ji Ran, and divorce Ji Ran immediately. Upon hearing that he had to divorce Ji Ran, Yi Linhan refused. Yi Linhan's mother tried to persuade her son not to be stubborn. However, Yi Linhan was determined not to get a divorce. Mr. Gon charged forward and slapped Yi Linhan, shouting, "You're an animal. How could I be so blind to entrust my son to you?" Even after being slapped, Yi Linhan didn't waver. I've never had any other feelings for Gon Rue. I promised to take care of him out of responsibility. If you want me to divorce Ji-ran and marry Ganrue, you can forget it. Mr. Gon's face turned stern. You think I can't touch you? Do you think the Gon family's power can't touch that precious darling in your hands? A flicker of panic crossed Yi Linhan's face. How dare you touch him? Seeing that his threat was working, Mr. Gon leaned into Yi Linhan's ear and whispered, as long as you don't divorce Ji-ran, I'll have a chance to take his life. Otherwise, you better watch him day and night, never letting him leave your sight for a second. Divorce and marry Xiaorui, or become a widower and marry Xiaorui, the choice is yours. Yi Linhan knew Mr. Gon was capable of carrying out his threat. He couldn't risk Ji-ran's life. Weighing the consequences, Yi Linhan could only agree for the time being. However, if anything happens to Ji-ran, I will hold the Gon family directly responsible. As Ji-ran walked out of the school gate after class, he saw Yelinhan waiting for him by the car. Yelinhan stretched out his hand, the meaning self-evident. Ji-ran felt as if there was a magic that made him involuntarily put his heart on the other. Yelinhan couldn't wait to take Ji-ran's hand, and then hugged him quietly without saying a word. He couldn't give up on Ji-ran, but he couldn't help but think about his safety. Ji-ran noticed something was wrong and asked him what was going on. After hesitating for a long time, Yelinhan finally spoke, the despicable things about Ganrue have spread. I have to marry him. Ji-ran's heart skipped a beat. Yelinhan was here to ask for a divorce. His plan had worked. He tried hard to suppress the corners of his mouth that wanted to rise. He would be free soon. However, after waiting for a long time, he heard Yelinhan say, Ran, shall we have a fake divorce? Without getting the answer he wanted, Ji-ran's face darkened. It had already come to this, yet he only wanted a fake divorce? He shook off the other's hand. Yelinhan, does this make any sense to you? Yelinhan suddenly became agitated. This is the only way I can think of. Do you really want to divorce me? Ji-ran shook off his hand again, not wanting to say another word to him because it was disgusting. This is not the only way. From the day Ganrue appeared, divorce was the best ending for us. After saying that, Ji-ran turned and left. Yelinhan's face was terrifyingly gloomy. Ji-ran wanted to leave him? Impossible, not in this lifetime. After leaving, I told my friend the plan had failed. We agreed to wait for the next opportunity. As I picked up my coffee for a sip, a sudden wave of nausea overcame me, and I dropped my coffee on the floor. I explained that I was fine, just a little shaky. As I bent down to pick up the cup, I saw the mark on my hand had turned red. Panic surged through me. Could I really be? I decided to get rid of it. But when I got to the hospital, I couldn't bring myself to go through with it. Looking at the mark on my hand turning red, I was horrified to realize that this time it was real. I slapped myself, trying to wake up from this nightmare, but the sharp pain told me this was not a dream. After calming down, I called my best friend, Shang Weiqing. Brother Shang, I need to take care of it. Help me. Shang Weiqing heard the distress in my voice. He told me that if I had made up my mind, I should avoid Yi Linhan's eyes and come to the hospital. When I arrived, Shang Weiqing tried to advise me, your body is not supposed to go through this. Seeing my resolve, Shang Weiqing didn't push further. It's your decision. I'll be outside. However, the one who just made up his mind hesitated at this moment. After thinking for a long time, he still didn't choose to take the medicine. Shang Weiqing saw him come out and asked with concern, how are you? Are you feeling unwell? He replied, Brother Shang, I didn't take the medicine. Have you thought it through? Leaving it means you'll be entangled with Yi Linhan endlessly. He interrupted, I won't be entangled with Yi Linhan. I will leave. I'll live with him alone. He's my only family. I've never been loved before, and I want to love him properly. Leaving Yi Linhan seemed like a nice plan, but would he really not notice? Every day, Yi Linhan routinely checked if Ji-ran's mark had turned red. Looking at the still blue mark, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Ji-ran pulled back his hand and stressed again that he was an alpha. Don't fantasize about things you can't do. Fortunately, Shang Weiqing had given him medicine that could suppress his hormones and change the color of the mark back, but the effect of the medicine could only last for a month. Ji-ran made up his mind that he must leave Yi Linhan within a month. Ji-ran said he wasn't feeling well and wanted to get some rest. Yi Linhan was overjoyed to hear Ji-ran's rare warm words, so he stopped doing anything. The next day, Ji-ran thought Yi Linhan was taking him to school, but he realized something was wrong with the route. He asked with some concern in his heart, where are you taking me? This road doesn't go to school. The next second, Yi Linggan's words made Ji-run feel like he had fallen into an icy abyss. Didn't you say you weren't feeling well? Let's go to the hospital for a checkup. Ji-run's true identity was finally exposed. It turned out that he was the missing young master of the Yun family. The superior said that Yi Linghan suspected that Ji-run might be pregnant and couldn't wait to take him to the hospital for a checkup. Ji-run was stunned. The next thing he needed to do was to escape. Yi Linghan stared at him with gloomy eyes. Why are you so resistant? Are you hiding something? Ji-run had no way to explain and could only pray that he wouldn't be found out. After the checkup, the doctor handed the results to Yi Linghan. Young Master Yi, this is the HCG test result. You see, Yi Linghan couldn't understand the report even after looking at it, nor could he understand the explanation. After a barrage of technical jargon from the doctor, the conclusion was that there was no such. This result left Ji-ran dumbfounded. The mark on his wrist had clearly turned light brown, so why couldn't the hospital detect it? Even more disbelieving of the result, Yi Linghan asked, he has clearly shown symptoms recently, are you sure you didn't misdiagnose him? I want another test. Seeing someone questioning his professionalism, the doctor retorted with a stern tone, young Master Yi, a second test is unnecessary. And I must tell you something, Ji-ran is not a true Omega. His constitution was altered through medication. His body structure is inherently alpha, so it's naturally impossible. Hearing these words, Yi Linghan felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. He couldn't believe it, yet he couldn't deny it. At this moment, Ji-ran's heart was in turmoil, unable to comprehend what was going on. Thinking that Ji-ran was disappointed, Yi Linghan comforted him, saying that they could go to other hospitals, even abroad if necessary, and they would find a way. After everyone left, the doctor opened a door and respectfully reported, they have left. Inside the room sat a man, Yun-song, the trusted aide of Ji-ran's biological father. Yun-song asked, does Yi Linghan have any doubts about the authenticity of the report? The doctor replied, not at the moment, but he may take young Master Ji to other hospitals for further examination. Yun-song didn't seem concerned, asserting, no matter how he investigates, the result will be the same. The doctor expressed his concern, although Yi Linghan can't find out now, it won't be long, maybe 2 months, before he realizes. Yun-song interrupted him, less than 2 months, I'll take young Master home. Determined, Yun-song declared, now that I've finally found young Master, I won't let anyone stop him from returning to the Yun family. Assign some people to protect young Master, but don't alarm those who are fighting for the family assets, so as to avoid putting young Master in danger. On the other side, Ji-ran, assuming Yi Linghan had given up hope, asked, now that the dust has settled, there's no need for you to keep me by your side, right? Yi Linghan turned around, shook his head at them, and said, Ran, it's my fault for making you suffer so much. In the end, it was all in vain. It's my fault. Hearing these apologetic words, Ran thought he was finally letting go. Even if we don't have children, I still want to spend my life with you. An heir is important, but you are more important to me. But now, Ran was no longer moved by his words. She pushed Yi Linghan away and said, let's break up. Yi Linghan shook his head violently and said, no. Ran looked at him coldly. If you want a baby, you can find someone else. Since I'm useless, you don't need to be entangled with me anymore. Clearly, she had underestimated Yi Linggan's obsession with her. He refused to be separated from her. Ran flung his hand away in disgust and asked, then how will you explain this to your parents? How will you explain it to the Dan family? Yi Linghan swore resolutely, I will find a way to deal with them. I will never be separated from you. Seeing that words were useless, Ran had no choice but to temporarily accept the situation and wait for the right opportunity to make her move. That night, Ran brought a glass of water to Yi Linghan. He didn't think much of it, and drank it directly. After finishing, he felt dizzy and lightheaded. Just as he was about to ask Ran what she had given him, the next second, he lost consciousness and collapsed. Rui dipped his finger in the file and pressed it on the voice recorder. This time, I can finally leave. Goodbye, Yi Linghan. Yi Linghan was completely gone this time. A fire ended everything. The story went that after Rui drugged Yi Linghan and escaped from the Yi family, he hid for half a month. His friend informed him that Yi Linghan had been sending people to look for him. Rui knew that if he kept hiding like this, he would be found sooner or later, so he decided to leave the country as soon as his visa was ready. His friend painstakingly told him to be careful during this time. Rui, seeing him being long-winded, sent him away. However, an accident happened soon. One day, when Gonrui went out to buy daily necessities, he found a car following him. He quickened his pace, wanting to go home as soon as possible. At this time, two people got out of the car and grabbed Gonrui's arms from left and right. Then one of them took out a handkerchief and covered his face. Soon, Gonrui lost consciousness. When he regained consciousness, Gonrui thought this must be Yi Lingan's doing. At this time, the person in the front passenger seat turned around. Unexpectedly, it was Gonrui. He was taken to a large, abandoned warehouse. He struggled to stand up and question Gonrui why he had kidnapped him. Gonrui stepped forward and pinched his chin. Why is Yi Linghan frantically looking for you? You even have his mark on you. Sooner or later, you will return to his side. By then, my plan will be ruined. Since it's not urgent. Since I escaped, I will never go back. Why are you doing this? Gonrui's eyes revealed a fierce light. Only when you are gone will you not ruin my painstakingly crafted plan. A chill ran down his spine. Was he going to be killed? In the next second, Gonrui instructed his bodyguards to pour gasoline on the ground. Don't even think about it. Of course, you shouldn't hate me. Blame yourself for insisting on being with Yi Linghan. I've already secretly sent your current location to Yi Linghan. When he gets here, he'll be able to see your corpse. As long as you die in front of him, he won't look for you again, and my plan will go smoothly. Gonrui took out a lighter and threw it over without mercy. In an instant, the fire spread, engulfing everything. When Yi Linghan rushed over and tried to rush in, he was stopped. But the fire was too big, and the bodyguards next to him dragged him back, preventing him from entering. Yi Linghan broke free regardless and rushed into the warehouse, but with a loud explosion, he was directly thrown out. He shouted Jiran's name loudly, but received no response. Yi Linghan. I felt completely empty, like I'd lost everything. Firefighters were dragging me, Yi Linghan, out, but my whole body resisted. But soon, I fainted from inhaling too much carbon dioxide. When I came to outside, I looked at the raging fire behind me and finally felt true despair. After all, he was reborn from the ashes and even brought back a handsome young lady. In the last episode, my sister was kidnapped and disappeared in a fire. When I, Yi Linghan, rushed into the fire, I couldn't even find a single hair of hers. The shock and smoke were too much, I inhaled too much carbon dioxide and ended up in the hospital. In my sleep, I went back to that fire. This time, I saw her transform and reach out to me. Ran, come here. Take my hand. But she chose to let the fire consume her, coldly saying, Yi Linghan, goodbye. My heart clenched in pain. No, Ran, I was wrong. Come back, please. I'll spend my life making it up to you. I rushed into the fire to pull her back, but in the end, she turned to ash and disappeared. In that moment, I broke down, screaming desperately, no. But it was all just a dream. I woke up with a start. Yidian was beside me. Yi Linghan anxiously grabbed his assistant, asking, I need to see Ran, which ward is he in? The assistant carefully explained, young master, the fire was too big, several. The assistant couldn't bring himself to say it, but Yi Linghan was triggered. He grabbed the assistant's collar furiously, how dare you curse him? I'll kill you. The assistant, though terrified, had to tell the truth. I know this is hard to accept, but, when we got there, the scene, we only found one body. Yi Linghan punched him, cutting him off, you're lying. Get out. Mother Yi pulled her son back, Linghan, stop it. He's gone. We all saw his body. Yi Linghan refused to face the reality of losing Jiran. He struggled out of bed, determined to find him. Mother Yi held him back, his death was an accident, don't blame yourself. Besides, he was just an insignificant nobody. You'll forget about him in 2 days. This enraged Yi Linghan. He shoved his mother away, he's not a nobody. How dare you speak of him like that? It's you. You drove him away. You killed him. It's all your fault. He was forced to his death by you. After venting his anger and grief over losing Jiran, Yi Linghan collapsed to the ground, his eyes vacant, staring at his hands. At this moment, he finally understood his regret. It was he himself who had pushed Jiran to his death. He forced Jiran to become an Omega, and after achieving his goal, he didn't cherish him. Time and time again, he broke Jiran's heart, leaving him with nowhere to turn. Yi Linghan slapped himself hard, muttering, I was wrong. But it was too late to say anything now. Jiran would never come back. At that moment, in an icy villa somewhere in Beicheng, Jiran woke up. He finally learned his true identity. Ji-ran was actually Yun-yi, the only son of the Yun family, the city's defender. Years ago, when Father Yun and Mother Yun took young Yun-yi on a trip, the only regret was that he couldn't find him. However, heaven never fails one who means well. After going through many difficulties, the housekeeper, Yun-song, finally found him. He finally understood why his parents had always favored his brother. He wasn't their biological child. Yun-song asked, "Young master, are you willing to return to the Yun family with me and claim your rightful place?" This time, Ji-ran didn't hesitate to agree. Going to Yun City meant cutting off all ties with everything here. He secretly vowed, "Yi-lin-han, I can't fight you now, so I can only stay away. But when I return, I will make you pay for everything you've done." 4 years later, Zhuo Yuz, the hottest male star in Yun City, appeared at the Beijing airport, surrounded by enthusiastic fans. Zhuo Yuz looked back and said, "See, I told you I'm popular in Beijing." Behind him, a man with his face partially hidden by a mask slowly revealed himself. It was Ji-ran, reborn from the ashes, holding the hand of a mini version of Yi-lin-han. Yi-lin-han saw the child but didn't recognize his own son. Ji-ran's triumphant return after 4 years immediately became a trending topic. Even the most popular artists under him were envious. Zhuo Yuz teased, "Dude, you're trending. You're even more popular than me." Ji-ran smiled faintly. "Today is your day, Zhuo Yuz. Why would I be trending?" He didn't seem to care. Zhuo Yuz read the headline of the trending topic aloud, "The alpha with the mask, whose boyfriend is he?" He then complained with mock indignation, "You're trending online even with a mask, I'm so worried." Seeing him rambling on and on with these useless words, Ji-ran wanted to kick him out. At this moment, Zhuo Yuz said he would participate in a parent-child variety show in a few days and wanted to take Sui with him. Ji-ran hesitated. He couldn't reveal his face in public yet. Zhuo Yuz persuaded him, "Don't worry, I'll go in as your manager, I guarantee your face won't be exposed. I'm just taking Sui to the set to have some fun. What's more, you are Yun-yi now, not Ji-ran." Hearing him say that, Ji-ran had to agree. A few days later, the two arrived at the set and were going over the script. While everyone wasn't paying attention, Sui let go of Ji-ran's hand, and quietly opened the door and slipped out. Just as little Sui was happily playing on the swing, a tall figure stopped in front of him. It was Yi-ling-han, who had been absent for a long time. After 4 years, father and son met in this way. Looking at Sui's eyes, Yi-ling-han couldn't help but feel that they resembled Ji-ran's, which made him feel a sense of closeness. Yi-ling-han bent down and gently touched the little guy's head. Perhaps it was a blood connection. Little Sui nestled in Yi-ling-han's arms. "You smell so good, like an alpha dad." Yi-ling-han asked, "You said I smell like an alpha dad, does your alpha dad smell like this too?" Hearing him asking about his father, the little guy couldn't help but feel sad. Sui's alpha dad had passed away long ago. Sui had never met him. Yi-ling-han looked at the little guy with some heartache. Alpha dad actually passed away, life must be hard for this child. Little did he know that the deceased person he was referring to was himself. Thinking about cheering the child up, Yi-ling-han offered to show him some magic tricks. He tickled behind Sui's ears, then took out some candy. Sui was overjoyed. "It's candy." Uncle conjured candy from behind her ear. At this moment, Yi-ling-han's eyes were overflowing with tenderness, and her voice was unbelievably gentle. Because Sui is made of candy, she can turn into candy anywhere. Just then, someone walked up behind them and called Sui's name. Yi-ling-han froze on the spot as the person led Sui away. It wasn't until they were far away that she reacted. That voice, that back, they seemed so familiar. The thought had just crossed Yi-ling-han's mind when he immediately dismissed it. No, it couldn't be Ran. Ran is gone. Drunk, Yi-ling-han had tried to get intimate with Ji-ran, but Ji-ran didn't seem to recognize him. In the previous episode, Ji-ran participated in a variety show with his son, Sui. Coincidentally, this show was funded by Yi-ling-han. His secretary was showing him behind-the-scenes clips from the show. Yi-ling-han watched the footage on his computer absent-mindedly. Suddenly, a shadowy figure caught his attention. Although the person was wearing a mask, Yi-ling-han felt an inexplicable familiarity. He hurriedly asked the secretary who this person was. Yi-ling-han caressed the figure on the screen. It was the first time in 4 years he had seen someone so much like Ji-ran. Hope flickered in his heart. Could this guardian of Sui really be Ji-ran? The secretary informed him that the person was Zhuo's assistant. He always wears a mask, rarely interacts with others, very mysterious. But Sui Sui is such a cheerful, well-behaved, and funny child. All the staff adore him. Mentioning the child, the secretary looked melancholic, assuming Yi Linghan was reminded of the unborn child he had with Gan Rui. Yi Linghan, hearing Sui Sui's name, couldn't help but praise him. Sui Sui is so adorable, everyone would love him. However, the secretary completely misunderstood. If only Gan Rui's child had survived, he would be around Sui Sui's age now. This sentence struck a chord with Yi Linghan, instantly transporting his thoughts back to 4 years ago. Back then, he overheard Gan Rui confessing the truth. Everything, from their marriage to having children, was a sham for revenge. Gui Zi even killed. To punish Gan Rui, Yi Linghan had him hospitalized and crippled, forcing him to live a life worse than death every day as atonement. Yi Linghan pounded on the table, his head throbbing, ordering the secretary to shut up. Who told you to mention him? Get out. He pinched the bridge of his nose, telling the secretary to cancel all his afternoon appointments. Despite his fear, the secretary had to remind him about a crucial business dinner he couldn't miss. Yi Linghan, losing his patience, threw him out. That evening, after finishing filming, Jirun was ready to return to the hotel with Sui Sui. As they exited, a black car idled outside. Assuming it was arranged by the brand, Jirun didn't think much of it and got in. He settled Sui Sui in the back seat and went to the front to direct the driver. Just as he buckled his seatbelt, he heard the person beside him call out, "Ran Ran?" Jirun turned his head in confusion and saw Yi Linghan looking at him intently, a look of guilt on his face as he repeated, "Ran Ran?" Startled, Jirun stammered, "Sorry, I think I got the wrong car. I'm not who you think I am." He reached for the door handle, but Yi Linghan grabbed his arm, pulling him closer and staring intensely. Sui Sui thought this strange man was bullying her dad, so she waved her little hands to stop him. Although Yi Linghan was drunk, he firmly believed that he was not mistaken. This person was Ran Ran. His Ran Ran wasn't dead. Yi Linghan reached out to pull down Ji Ran's mask. He could know whether it was Ji Ran or not as long as he took off the mask. Yi Linghan finally confirmed that Jun Yi was Ji Ran. He couldn't wait to take off Ji Ran's mask. Ji Ran was caught off guard and grabbed Yi Linghan's chaotic hand. However, Yi Linghan was drunk and relentlessly reached for Ji Ran. Ji Ran couldn't bear it anymore and angrily flung him away. "I've already explained to you, we got in the wrong car. I don't know you at all, let alone the Ran Ran you mentioned. Please let go and let me get out of the car." However, Yi Linghan didn't listen to his explanation at all. "How could you not know me? You're lying." Ji Ran endured the last bit of patience to explain, "I'm Yun Yi, the son of the richest man in Yun Chang. I've never been to Beichang before. This time I'm here to accompany my friend for filming. You really mistook me for someone else." After speaking, he turned to open the car door. Yi Linghan grabbed Ji Ran from behind and kept talking about his longing for him. "Ran Ran. Don't leave me. I really know I was wrong. You don't know how I've lived these past 4 years. I haven't stopped thinking about you for a second." The affectionate words were more disgusting than weeds. Now, hearing these words, Ji Ran only felt disgusted. He chopped the back of Yi Linghan's neck, knocking him unconscious. Sui Sui asked worriedly from behind, "Dad, is the uncle dead?" Ji Ran explained, "No, he's just asleep." He just didn't expect that even though the man fainted, his hand was still tightly clutching Ji Ran, refusing to let go. Ji Ran pushed him away in disgust, not wanting to spend another second in the same space as him. As he picked up Sui Sui to leave, the little one asked worriedly, "Daddy, do you have a headache again?" Zaygij said that Daddy needs to take his medicine. "Daddy, did you forget to take it again?" Sui Sui looked at him with concern. After he finished speaking, the little guy thoughtfully touched Ji Ran's head. "Let Sui Sui blow on it, and the pain will fly away." Ji Ran felt a warmth in his heart. "Don't worry, Sui Sui. My headache isn't as frequent as before. With Sui Sui here, Daddy doesn't feel any pain at all. I was just startled." Sui Sui hesitated for a moment before saying, "Don't be scared. I've seen that uncle before where I film. He even gave me candy. He doesn't seem like a bad guy." Ji Ran pinched his son's face with slight annoyance. "Sui Sui, Daddy told you we can't accept things from strangers. And bad people don't have the word bad guy written on their faces. You must be careful in the future." Although the little guy didn't fully understand, he obediently said, "I know, Daddy." "Will you tell me the story of the little turtle tonight?" Ji Ran walked home with Sui Sui in his arms, leaving a stunned Yi Linghan in the car for the entire night. Early the next morning, Yun Ziqiu finally found Yi Linghan by the side of the road. After a series of earth-shattering knocks on the window, Yi Linghan finally woke up. Yun Ziqiu couldn't help but complain, "Dude, you ran off after drinking halfway last night. You didn't answer my calls or texts. Do you know how long I've been looking for you?" Yi Linghan recalled last night's events amidst his friend's complaints. The man's eyebrows really resembled Jiran's. Then he denied it with disappointment. It just seemed similar. How could he be so silly to think a stranger was Jiran just because of similar eyebrows? Yun Ziqiu saw Yi Linghan lost in a daze and slapped him on the arm in frustration. Yi Linghan finally snapped out of it completely. "Alright, do me a favor." He showed me a picture of Jiran and asked me to look into this person. I was speechless. "Don't you recognize him? You must have lost your mind after Jiran's death. This is Yun Yi, the new head of the prestigious Yun family." This time it was Yi Linghan's turn to be shocked. How could he be the new head of the Yun family? Yun Ziqiu explained, "Actually, the Yun family has a bit of a blood connection with our line of work. Although they are not part of the Five Lakes, I received his information when he was found by his family 4 years ago." Sure enough, Yi Linghan found a lot of information about Yun Yi when she searched. "But this face, this person, how could I be mistaken?" Yun Ziqiu had to break it to her. "I know he looks a lot like Jiran, but they are indeed not the same person. We can't afford to offend someone of Yun Yi's status." Suddenly, Yi Linghan realized something. "When did you say he was found by the Yun family?" she asked Yun Ziqiu.